Swami Mitranandaji, resident spiritual mentor of Chinmaya Mission Chennai, retired Lieutenant General L. Nisikanta Singh, Secretary Chinmaya Mission Trust Manipur, respected Dr. T.S.W. Singh, Chairman Managing Director, Babina Healthcare and Hospitality, Professor and Lokendra Singh, Vice Chancellor Manipur University, eminent scholars and academicians from the different states participating in this conference, distinguished guests and invitees, friends from media, ladies and gentlemen. We have been given opportunity to host G22, and we successfully interacted and successfully overcome that G20 summit. Many visitors from the outside appreciate it and enjoy. We also got many feedbacks and the importance recommendation from the visitors. Today also it is a privilege to us for having this kind of conference here in the state of Manipur. Really it gives me immense pleasure to take part in this prestigious event of C20 India 2023, being organized by Chinmaya Mission under our country's G20 presidency, under the dynamic leadership of our visionary Prime Minister, Shri Narendra Modi ji. It is indeed a pride moment that India, which has been the cradle of the most ancient value system that eternally sustained all form of existence, has been blessed out with the honor of guiding the world with the assumption of G20 presidency. The Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji has very aptly chosen the theme of India's presidency as Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, or one earth, one family, one future. Till today, no world leader has brought such realistic and visionary ideas in the world. The theme spotlight lifestyle for environment, which is associated environmentally sustainable and responsible choices, both at the level of individual's lifestyle as well as national development, leading to globally transformative actions resulting in a cleaner, greener, and a bluer future. For India, G20 presidency also marked the beginning of Amrit Kal, the 25-year period beginning from the 75th Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. Sorry, language में थोड़ा सा but spirit is already inside, but sorry for it. Or one earth and one family, one future is a universal maximum whose purpose is not an imposition but the evolution of human consciousness that will lead to the protection of the world through friendship and cooperation. Supplying COVID vaccines to poorer nations, more than 1,000 nations got COVID vaccines from India. India has found the way to defining Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. I am confident that the deliberations at the conference will go a long way in spreading the valuable messages of universal brotherhood and voicing the concern of the world population through the civil society organization to the world leader G20. I also want to inform the one important and happy news to all of you. Miss Femina India, for the first time in the entire Northeast, I should say, is taking place in the state of Manipur, and all the contingents has arrived yesterday, and the Manipur peoples, I welcome them right from the airport up to the hotels. So, Sigisida Aina Aigi Praja Singda Aigi Manipur Miyam da in appeal to Jening Basi Miss Femina India Manipur Gumba Pikraba State Mada Pangthokpa Equina Ngamba Adamada Makoina Bharat Pumbadagi Adugumba Miss in a contest select Tobirabishina Latinabagi Ayaba Latning Bagi Wakal Ponga Power Lakpiriba at the organizing committee, the Times of India groups. See Equina Yama Taraina Lobiade Madame di Mayama Kange, Koi Manipursi Matamamada travel state ni Haidana Kanamata Sambi Rapedana. Even I quay see the lady of how was Pada Quay evening Pumanga, heck kitang monkey with the Yakuimapan Topangam Naramde, Sutnaramde, Sorok the Miguramde, Mapandagi lap with the Tokro, Mapandagi financiers in Lami Zapangi Zaikagi, Sericulture Gida Karor Samri Kagi project am Torambadagi, Akoi Manipur Pumju with the Kangachi and Gravni Saikun, Kanam the Hanalakidram. But now, with the blessing of the Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji, with the cooperation and the support of the people of the state, I quite was Mangu Salavan. Hojik Sidida Sidamagi Magi Kainosinam, Akoki Morupsinaman Torkanda. Notice the An boy in a quay. Girls Kataki, Sini school Lama Hangana proposal of Quay Logana, Langaloi Pira, Nopi Masakataki. Manipur ki lady with Nupi Singi Moigi caliber. Manipur City almost Haidokoda the Kaya the Nupina Pan Nupi Sakti said to Mati Wang, everything Nupina Pan by Naganum Sakran. I did Nupigi Sakti. I don't know which day the matter of girl. Send Maggie Quiggy Mitandra G. Quite of a Tana, how the Hujusina in a quay, Bishnupur area, the Lampange. 15 acres, 23 acres. Torkanda Queen Nupi Katigi, hanging at the Mayanda, Piltong in Basi, Tarik Taraba, they will stay here up to 15. Miss Indiagi. I don't know, Mogi Lavish, they quite any Makalamatagi, Fataba, Taunina, Yaningwidaba, I could eat a chopoyaba. Potchak amatang Babo Tokbidan Bainaba. Okay, Apple Toningi, Tokjeri, Madam the Akoi Masin Kayumama Kanarasu and on Torzo, hey, me those Udan, even Manung the Kanasi having me lading it, the Quakanagums having a quaint came later in a man that Apple Toningis. Adunai Nasiki Kudong Savas, Lorkanda, live content Send Mayam. Aduga organizer gi Miss Femina gi including Nasiki la issue brigadiers retirees adagi kaino khoi lieutenant general mayam musuyauri adagi professor sing mayam musuyauri hide which they khoi gi hospitality akhoi gi nobility akhoi gi culture akhoi gi yamna homely makhoi the feel to honna bagi aduga mathabang mayam de khoi pakan minasi aduga sishu success hoibaga loina Miss India gi Tarik Tramada Tawudori Basisho, Mayam Sanglena, Aduga Manipur gi Mayam, Miam Punamona Salzo, Pibiraga, My Pang Pangtopang, I'm never Hona Si Hijeraga, Sigi, wish you all the best, and I'm expecting a good and a positive recommendation from you so that we can implement in our governance systems. Thank you. Jai Hind.
Thank you so much, Honorable Chief Minister, Manipur, Sri Nongthombam Biren Singh, for sharing your kind words of wisdom with us. Thank you so much, sir, once again. May I now request Professor Sushma Yadav, Member of University Grants Commission, New Delhi, to give us a moment to honor and felicitate you with a token of appreciation. And to do the honor, would like to request once again our respected Chief Guest, Honorable Chief Minister, Manipur, Sri N. Biren Singh. Professor Sushma Yadav, Member of University Grants Commission, New Delhi, our respected Speaker. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much, ma'am. Presidential speech. Would like to request our respected President, Honorable Minister for RD and PR and Mahout Government of Manipur, Shri Y. Khemchan Singh, to address the presidential speech.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Namaskar. Ngasigi function sigi ay high bahudri da sagi Honorable Chief Minister na Miss Femina purakpagi wari matek amtang liragasu. Hogiba chahi kayadagi koi tangdu laita adana lairamba state sida santi pora matungda koi tourism attract tawdragadi economy da koi achoba sapu ma pibanga moi khalakanda toan da festival kayada Honorable Chief Minister na mapangi delegate mayam ma kaurakanda Manipur si santi leiba duga isor pitokpa adugumba leiba nungaiba lamma mani haina khangbirakpudagi Miss Femina bhau si propose tawtana Honorable Chief Minister gi honajaman asining matungba hori swaisida ai amuktanga mayam gi ahob khubam da ni jage Thagachari namaskar. I extend my regard to Sri N. Biren Singh, Honorable Chief Minister Manipur, Swami Vivekananda Ji, Chinmaya Mission, Professor Sushma Yadav, Professor N. Lokendro, Sri M. Ashwini Kumar, Professor Rajiv Sinha, Lieutenant General Ellen Singh, Lieutenant General Kulkarani, and other dignitaries and media friends. I am happy to join in this inaugural session of C20 National Seminar on Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. Please don't mind. The Sanskrit is a very tough word. So, anyway, one earth, one family which reflect India's global leadership. Under Honorable Prime Minister Sri Narendra Modi's leadership, India's role in the global leadership has now so much improved. Now India is a global leader in taking important role in solving several challenges. We know that today the world is full of problems, conflict, and differences and challenges. So it is very important to promote the idea of one world, one family, so that idea of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, that is one world, one family, is very important thinking, so that we live in peace. Every human being wants to live in peace. To bring peace into the world, we need to promote the concept of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, which means one world, one family. If we all in this world live as one family, there will be more peace. So on behalf of people of Manipur, I express my gratitude to the Chinmaya mission and the C20 team for organizing such a meaningful seminar in Manipur. I wish everyone present here all the very best of comfortable stay here in Manipur. Let this seminar be grand success. Jai Hind.
Thank you so much, Honorable Minister, RD and PR and Mahood Government of Manipur, Shri Yumnam Khemchand Singh, for that very brief and for that very meaningful presidential speech. Thank you so much once again. Would like to request all the respected dignitaries on the dais for a very quick photo session. And all the eminent speaker also would like to have your presence on the dais for a very quick photo session before the departure of our Honorable Chief Minister.
Is it comfortable for you? Oh, just now? I see. Nice. You're doing well.
Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, now we will begin with the first session, and that is on Dharma. And our speaker is Shri Brajamani Sharma and Swami Anukulananda, Resident Director, CIRS. Before our speaker give the presentation, the subject will be introduced by our Swami Mitranandaji, Resident Spiritual Mentor at Chinmaya Mission, Chennai.
Center seat. Center.
Please follow that.
Next.
Sir, all the speaker, please sit.
Thank you. The session by session, right? Yeah. My salutations to everyone. Dharma plays a very vital role in keeping the community together, keeping the family together. And many things which are instructed through Dharma, people practice. when it comes from a spiritual teacher, when it comes from a religious institute, people have faith and they practice. So to bring this idea of dharma into Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, and to make dharmic people to tell us how this has to be practiced. A simple example, let us say if there is a lump of gold. From the lump of gold, a ring is made. From the same lump of gold, a chain is made. From the same lump of gold, a bracelet is made. Whether it is ring, bracelet, chain, if it comes from gold, it has to be nothing but gold. From gold, we cannot get copper. From gold, we cannot get iron. From gold, what comes will be gold. Is this clear? From God, what comes has to be only divine. From God, what comes has to be only divinity. Our perception could differ, but what is there is nothing but the divine alone. The cause and the effect are one and the same. The effect is in another form of the cause. So this idea, our rishis understood this long before, and that is why they said, Purnamada, Purnamidam, Purnat, Purnamudachyate. That is complete. What manifests is Purna. Purnamada, Adaha Purnam, Idam Purnam. This is also complete. This is also Purnata, fulfilled, divine. So that is divine, this is divine. Tattvamasi. It's a Mahavakya. Mahavakya means a great statement from the Vedas, which says, Tat Tvam Asi, that thou art, that thou art. The creator is that, the created is this. Both are one and the same from another standpoint. Like the waves in the ocean, the bubble, etc. are nothing but the waves, nothing but the water. Water only manifests as waves, water only manifests as bubble, etc. So this idea, we Indians gave it to the world, just like so many beautiful things we have given to the world. We gave to the world meditation. We gave to the world yoga. We gave to the world numbers from zero. We have given so many beautiful things to the world, and that is one Vedantic statement that we are all just one. Humanity has to be guided to realize this. The moment we realize this, there will be peace and harmony. We can change. Please remember, animals have no problem. Insects and birds have no problem. Plants and trees have no problem. The problem on the planet is the humans. We have created this mess. Why? Because we don't see the created as one extended family. We see them separate. So the Rishi says, that person who sees that the world is separate, that person is narrow-minded. The one who sees the whole world as one, he is a wise person. Now this wisdom needs to be brought back once again. It's up to us as humans how we can change. The change can't come easily. It's a long journey. The journey from belief to faith is a very long journey. This right now our discussion is at the belief level. Oh, this could be one. This belief has to transform to faith. The journey from belief to faith is a long one. Beliefs can change. Faith doesn't change. So we have started this, introducing this old Indian ethos back to the world, guiding people that we are one. End of these different seminars, we are coming out with a book, which we would of course be giving it to the Prime Minister, and Prime Minister in turn will share it with all the G20 countries. This book will have quotations across the world where people have spoken about oneness of the world. So we will be having the same oneness through spiritual angle, from dharmic standpoint, how this is all one. We will be discussing the same thing, why we should worship the nature, not conquer the nature. Conquering the nature is a very negative attitude. Revere the nature, because that's what the nature has given us. We have to look at nature like a mother. So we will be having wonderful quotations across the globe talking about oneness through nature, through science, through spirituality, how we are one, and we will compile that basically to make the world understand a similar thought existed in World Heritage civilizations. Be it Aborigines of Australia or the Argentinian, Brazil, everywhere in the world, similar thoughts have been entertained. We have done research and we are making this book. That would be one of the things which we would give it to the Prime Minister himself to be shared with the G20 leaders, basically trying to tell we are one. With this, we will begin our discussion on Dharma. Please be seated. Thank you very much.
Mukhaṁ karoti vatsālaṁ Pangum langhayate giri Yat kripatam aham bande Paramananda Madhavam. Salutations and processions to everybody, particularly Swami Vitranandaji and eminent persons before me and everybody. I would like to present a paper, very simple, on the theme Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam is a Sanskrit phrase meaning the earth is indeed a family. This is occurred in the Maha Upanishad, which belongs to Atharvaveda and also to Samveda. The mantra reads thus: I am Nijaha Paro Uveti Gananaha Laghu Setasam Udara Saritanam to Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. That means, I am this, Nija, mine, Paro, for others. And these are known by those who are very selfish person, narrow-minded person, and simply small persons. And whereas Udara Setasam, that means who are noble, who lives magnanimously, who has broad mind, will think that this world is simply a family. Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam is a Sanskrit phrase derived from three words: Vasudha Eva Kutumbakam. Vasudha means the earth. Because Vasudha means, Vasu means wealth. Da means da, given. This earth gives us all wealth. That is why we call the earth as Vasudha. Eva, as if indeed Kutumbakam, a big family. All are included. That is why Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam means the oneness of these varied things. The teachings of Sanatana literature give emphasis on equal vision and equal treatment to any name and form. Everybody and everything on the earth shares in the well-being of the whole system of the universe. Even the poisonous living being has the necessity of existence in this world for some specific purpose, which we may know or not, may know not. What an ant does has the same value as the elephant does when it is accounted for the whole. The first cry of a child tantamounts to the greatest wealth in a well-to-do family pertaining to genealogy. The prosperity of a family lies on the activities of each member done with a common purpose and with honesty and sincerity. Vasudhaiva means the earth which provides all the necessities, all the dishes, all the vitamins, all the minerals, and it is the supporter of all. The nature which is manifested with the earth produces varieties of living and non-living things and left them to follow certain rules which the nature itself follows for their welfare and abundance. The rules are known as laws of nature, in which the backbone is sacrifice. Without sacrifice, there will be no more living beings. In fact, all the plants, creatures, minerals, and others are living together by the rule of sacrifice. Mother sacrifices for the child, but the sacrifice does not affect the mother. Everybody except human beings follow the rules. As Swamiji had already told, the problem is from human beings, not from plants, from other creatures. And in man, greed, jealousy, and ego produce selfishness, and it makes man to differentiate from other creatures, even from the human beings. That is why the earth is now becoming a big crematorium. Instead of providing nectar, which induces the art of immortality. By immortality, we are to understand the family, not the individuals. A tree drops hundreds and thousands of old leaves every season, but the tree is not yet dead. Newer and newer twigs, branches, buds, and leaves are seen increasing. So also human beings die in thousands every moment, but the population is increasing. This is the meaning of immortality in practice. But epidemics, droughts, floods, earthquakes, and other forms of natural calamities destroy the increasing populations of any species. Moreover, wars and struggles wherein deadly weapons are used cause mass destruction. It is the human being who creates any kind of destructive events. We human beings call ourselves civilized and cultured, but as we identify ourselves as civilized, the destructive functions are increasing. Thus, the meaning of culture is misunderstood. As per scriptures, the real civilization lies to the society whose individuals see everybody and everything equally and ready for sacrifice. But there is no such society at present. Really, culture is concerned to a group of people and manner is concerned to the individual people. Culture without good behavior is not an ideal culture. We cannot give assurance to any teacher as a true teacher, to any businessman as a true and a trustworthy businessman, to any husband as a true and ideal husband, and so on, at the present context. It cannot be exaggerated to say that persons in any field of work regard their professions as a chance for conducting business tactfully and not as a service to mankind. If the system continues, it is certain that wholesale destruction is at our neighbor. It is the right time to correct the system. We are to imitate the doings of our ancestors. When there was the need of nectar, which was left hidden inside the ocean, Brahma, the creator, advised the gods to compromise with the mighty Asuras for the purpose, and accordingly nectar was obtained. Thus, we are to compromise with any force for the nectar. The rest will be in the hands of the Lord. Sri Ramachandra conquered the mighty Ravana by raising an army of monkeys, bears, and men. So also we are to make friends with plants and animals to save ourselves from facing a total destruction. Sri Krishna Chandra lived in Vrindavana, a forest, and destroyed evil forces like Putana, literally meaning which is not clean. Putana means that is not clean, is called Putana. Brishasur, the devilish oxen. Aghasura, the diabolic python. Dhenukasura, the cruel animal, etc., and make the water of the river Jamuna clean by driving out the venomous serpent to a suitable place in the sea. Moreover, the Lord regulated the natural forces by using the Govardhana hill, which clearly shows that cyclone, drought, floods, etc., can be warded off by nourishing hills and forests. Our ancestors lived in the forest at their last stage of life, called sannyasa, not in the houses where youngsters were ready to serve. They prefer the nurture of the nature because they made friends with the plants and animals. But we have now not available. Again, Sri Krishna trained the 5 sons of Pandu to bear various climatic conditions, to habituate any form of food, to adopt different types of people, to adopt different types of people, so that the evil elements, those polluting the earth, be removed from the earth. He left Vrindavana when there prevailed love and pure love anywhere. He left the earth when there was rule of law. Such examples are very much necessary for us so that little adjustment be applied to suit the present situation. We have to make the people aware of the fact that neither the king nor the pauper will carry the throne or the rack when they leave their bodies. Reading and explaining valuable scriptures before all be made so that everybody understands the fact that the world is only an illusion. Our distribution of knowledge should be uniform, and in any art or science discipline, the essence of life be injected so that everybody become a good-mannered person and become one who would like to live and let live. The aim of education should be made to learn the art of living together. It is the education we receive and impart to these children that insists us make dreaded weapons for mass destruction, make rice from plastics, make aged parents to live in the old age homes, make doctors to earn from the suffering people, make the impious politicians to rule the states, make women free from chastity, make the children drug addicts, make the market of duplicates, make men wild and brutal, make men unsatisfied persons, etc., etc. The education has not given us the moral value of life, has neglected the spiritual side of human existence, has not taught the pleasure out of love to parents and brothers. Real education should aim at dedication, sacrifice, and giving out, because we have to live everything, including this body, at the end of this world. We are well taught to collect, store, snatching, and left unused. When Arjuna in the Mahabharata was saw his relatives array before him, he considered the act of using weapons to them was not a righteous act, and decided not to fight. If the human beings be taught to consider like Arjuna when he or she is about to cut a tree, to drop a polythene bag, to throw anything or any egg that was righteous or not, then our problems in this age should have been solved to the maximum. In conclusion, it is a must to feel that the earth is a family by every person, and the enmity between man and man, group and a group, etc., will be vanished. And universal brotherhood and love will be prevail. Nowadays, it is regarded that the earth is a village due to the scientific inventions and their applications. We are not now in the time of walking on foot, mounting on domestic animals, but are at the age of robots. Let us try to make the earth a healthy place to live by propagating the idea of oneness. Thank you all.
The session is open for Q&A. If there is anything you want to ask, please do come. If there's any suggestion you want to say, please do say. Thank you.
Oh, yes. Thank you so much for the enlightened speech. Yes, I have two questions. The first question is the theme Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. Is there any relationship between these between the word Vasudhaivam? Is there any? Yes.
Vasudhaiva and Vasudhaiva are two different words. Oh, we can hear you, sir. Yeah.
Let me clear first question. My question is there any relationship between Vasudhaiva and Vasudev? Okay, my first question. And the second question is comparison and contrasting concept between Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam and capitalist train in modern world. Capitalism. Okay. The concept of one family and the one this and that, and the contemporary capitalistic mode of production, the kind of thinking behind capitalism. Any comparison and contrasting between these two concepts? That is my question. Okay.
First point, Vasudhaiva and Vasudhaiva are two different words. Vasudha means earth. Vasudha eva, earth alone is my family, Kutumbakam. That is the meaning. So these two are different words altogether. So you're asking, is there any connection? Not directly, but we can derive indicated meaning. We can infer that we also call the Lord Vasudeva. Many names. The Lord has 1,000+ names, and one of that is Vasudhaiva. So from that Lord only everything has manifested, including the earth, which is called Vasudha. That way, if you want to connect it, you can connect, but these are two different words. Okay. Second question, the capitalistic view and the spiritualistic view. In spiritual view, my right is the last. In material view, my right is the first. In spiritual world, my duty is first. My right comes last. Individual is the last. Family is the first. For the family, individual can give up. The family can give up itself for the community. The sacrifice is always from the lower to the higher. So for us, the individual is the lowest. So we sacrifice the lower for the higher, for a bigger cause. This is spiritual. So where the basic differences would be like, we insist upon our duties, whereas the materialism demands on their rights. So this opinion has to change. For this vision to change, we need to make people understand we are not different, we are just one. If we can make people understand this through quantum physics, we must attempt. If we can make people understand through cellular biology, we should attempt. If we can make people understand through spirituality, we should attempt. Thank you.
Swamiji, one more question. Swamiji, one more question. Can you hear me, sir? Yes, sir. Yes. Swamiji, this is Vikram Mathia. Swamiji, you told that belief can change, but faith doesn't change. My question to you is that, is Dharma evolving? Is our religion evolving? Like as a human we are evolving. Is Dharma and religion evolving now?
Religion is not equal to dharma. Religion means re-regarding, to look back, and dharma is the possessed virtue, which is in every individual may vary. By the word dharma, we cannot say I am a Christian, I am a Muslim, like this. It is a dogma. It is a doctrine to be followed. But dharma is that which is inherited to me. Thank you.
I'll add something. Yeah. Dharma is not born out of one mind. Dharma is a collective thinking, just like science. Science is not born out of one mind. No one particular person is an authority on science. Collective observation, processed, accepted by everybody, then it becomes science. So dharma is in line with science. Collective thinking, collective observation, properly analyzed and then accepted, then it becomes dharma. Okay. So sampradaya could be, there's a difference, the sampradaya and dharma. Sampradaya is one person's thinking, one person's vision, which could be contested. So sampradaya has room for evolution. Dharma has no room for evolution because it is an accepted fact by collective thinking. And one more aspect about it is most of these observations happened when a mind was silent. The Vedic mantras, for example, was not born out of a human mind. When the human mind was silent, still, then it got downloaded. From the divine, things got downloaded when the intellect was silent, not when the intellect was active. So the Rishi, when he was quiet, when he silenced himself, connected to the stillness, in that still mind, a few things came to him, revealed. They are divine downloads. Those divine downloads are compiled as mantras. For example, we had a Rishi by name Yajnavalkya. He was quiet, meditating. In the stillness of his meditation, the number 108 came to his head. And when he was analyzing what is this 108, and then he said, the distance between the earth and the sun is 108 suns. The diameter of the sun can accommodate 108 earths. This was said at Vedic time. Today the science has approved it. So now, how did he go there? Did he go there and measure? No, he never measured anything. In stillness, it got revealed. Recent time, if we talk about, it is Ramanuja, the mathematician. Ramanuja did not, when people used to ask Ramanuja, how do you know the answer? He says, the goddess tells me. He was not able to tell the process, but in that still mind, he could connect. So his friend Hardy was asking, you should tell the process, otherwise I can't take you into the fellowship. But he said, no, you ask me, I do not know. You throw a question, the answer just comes to me. He was a man of faith, so he said, the goddess tells me. Basically here also, when the mind was still, the answer gets revealed. So these kind of revelations compiled together is the Vedic mantras, which we see as Sanatan Dharma. Dharma that is eternal. So that which is eternal is not subject to evolution, it's already evolved. Sampradayas born out of single minds needs to be evolved. There is room for evolution there. Thank you.
Myself, Ashok, Principal NJ College. It's not a question for me, but in support of the idea of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. It is not an assertion made in the Upanishad that the whole human beings and the earth is one. Recently, I had the opportunity of reading a book called Bound Together, written by one professor of Columbia University, Nayan Chandra. It was a collection of so many laboratory works on DNA sequencing. In that book, beautifully describes the whole people of the world, they have something in common. The DNA sequencing, for different people, there are different numbers of DNA. But one sequencing, that is mitochondrial, was same, and it is brought from mother to mother. And I suggest everyone to read that book, Bound Together, written by Nayan Chandra. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That will be the last question of this session. Okay, one more. This will be the last. Yeah.
Namaskar. Kathakali Bhattacharya from Vivekananda Kendra. My question is, Swami Vivekananda says, Dharma is the soul of India. Now, in this present context, how it is relevant, how it is beneficial, giving solution to the present socio-cultural conflicts or challenges that we are facing. Thank you.
Aesthetics is the soul of Japan. Dharma is the soul of Bharat. Yes. Are we not practicing it even today? It is so integrated into our living style. Even today. Average Indian, if you look at an average Indian family, 4.9 people live together as a family. Most of you check how many people there are there in your house. 4.9. India has got 2% land and 18% population of the world, and 30% of the biodiversity is existing here, which is not there in other parts of the world, and mainly the northeast, if you see. So you see, we have respected nature. We occupy less space with adjustment. Imagine if this 4.9 per family comes down to 2 per family. How many more apartments we need? How much more forest we will destroy? Think. How much forest will go? How much natural resources would be destroyed? We adjust because dharma is still there. In a family, 4.9 people living together, taking minimum and giving maximum is our dharma. Producing more than what we consume and giving more than what we take is practiced even today. Imagine if we give up our basic dharmic way of life, which is so natural. Today we need to discuss this in international conferences. For climate change, we need to discuss this. What will happen if the families start coming down to 2 people per family? What would happen to earth? Where is the land? What will happen to the forest? So dharma is the soul of Bharat, and we are practicing it in every way. We are practicing dharma in our eating habits. We are practicing dharma in our living style. We are practicing dharma in accommodating people of different religious mindsets. Everybody has come here and everybody has got a space here to live. We practice dharma in accommodating people. We practice dharma in reaching out to somebody. And in villages of India, you see this even more prominent than in the cities. How much people adjust and live as a family. For example, we practice it all throughout. I'll just give you an example. Diwali we celebrate. Deepavali is celebrated in a very big way in our country. 1.3, 1.4 billion population. Mostly for Diwali, everybody buys a new clothes. Let's say even 900 people buy new clothes. That is called Lakshmi Puja. 900 people buying new clothes at a rupees minimum of 500, 600. 900 into 600 or 700, what is the economy? Minimum, I'm saying. There are rich people who will buy for a few thousands, 20,000, 30,000 worth. The maid at home could be buying for 500. So average, if you take 1,000 rupees, just think. For Diwali alone, 700 or 800 million people buying clothes. What is the economy rotation? Now, who benefits from it? In the name of dharma, celebration. The people who make garments, they benefit. People who make flowers, garlands, they benefit. Goldsmith benefits. Sweet makers benefit. Different festivals, we have different rituals and different communities benefit from it. Our lifestyle is like that. Our festivals are economy based. Durga Puja, which is popular in this part of the world, Bengal and other places. Just think. In Bengal, for Durga Puja this year, 32,000 crores money was circulated for making pandals. Now, who are the benefits from Durga Puja? The last member of the community benefits. So our festivals are designed that way. For example, Shankaranti. In South, Shankaranti we buy sugarcane and offer it to Surya, the Lord Sun. Now, who benefits from it? The farmer there benefits. And we also plant a turmeric plant. Now, there is a guy. So different rituals benefit different communities. As long as we continue to celebrate our festivals, our economy would be strong. Dharma is practiced there through festivals, reaching out to everybody in the name of God, by our lifestyle of living. So we practice dharma. It is very, very relevant and very, very active even today. So I don't think India has gone adharmic. There can be pockets of adharma, but dharma prevails here. If adharma becomes more, avatar will come down. Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata. So when there is a decline in dharma, the Lord will manifest to set it right. But I don't think Bharat has declined. We are still practicing it well. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Swamiji. That was a very eye-opening answer. Thank you so much, Swamiji. And yeah, would like to extend a very warm thanks to Shri Brajamani Sharma for that remarkable presentation on Dharma. Thank you so much. And to begin the second session, first of all, would like to request Lieutenant General Retired L. Nisikanta Singh, Secretary, Chinmaya Mission Trust, Manipur, to moderate the session. Yes. Especially to maintain the allocated time to the speakers. A gentle reminder to everyone present here to please keep all your mobile phones on silent mode as for a smooth functioning of this program. Thank you so much. And next would like to request Professor Dr. Shushma Yadav, Pro Vice Chancellor, Central University of Haryana, and Professor N. Lokendra Singh, Vice Chancellor, Manipur University, our next speakers. Yes. A topper of Delhi University, Professor Susma Yadav has published more than 15 books and several research papers in national and international journals. She has played a significant role in planning, implementation, and evaluation of policies and academic activities as Chancellor's nominee, Visitor's nominee, and member of Finance Committee, Academic Council, and Executive Council of a number of central and state universities. Professor Shushma Yadav is presently member of University Grants Commission. She is a recipient of a number of prestigious awards, including Pride of the Nation Excellence Award 2019, Women of the Year 2019 Award, Delhi Sammant Ratan 2015, Ambassador of Peace Award 2015, Women Leader Award 2015, National Leader Award 2006. Ladies and gentlemen, next speaker we have is Professor Shushma Yadav, member of University Grants Commission, New Delhi.
And how much time? 15 minutes, ma'am. 15 minutes? Yes. No, it's okay. I'll keep to the time. Thank you very much. The moderator of the session, Lieutenant General Retired L. Nishikant Singh Ji, who is the Secretary, Chinmaya Mission Trust, Manipur. Honorable Swami Mitrananda Ji, Resident Spiritual Mentor at Chinmaya Mission, Chennai, and the host here, along with Shri M. Ashni Kumar Singh Ji, Chairman, Loktak Development Authority. You can remove it. Thank you. Now I'm visible, it seems. I would again say, Shri Ashni Kumar Singh Ji, Chairman, Loktak Development Authority, the man who has put us all together. Thank you very much for giving us this opportunity. The other co-panelist with me, and Honorable Vice Chancellor, Manipur University, a colleague, dear friend, Professor N. Lokendra Singh Ji, The other speakers of the two sessions, Professor Rajiv Sinhaji, Professor Department of Earth Science, who will be speaking in the ecology session, and Dr. Vinita Gowda, she, I think, at the moment is not there, and geopolitics and defense speakers, Lieutenant General retired Sanjay Kulkarni and Brigadier Hemant Mahajan, who are there, and Professor Brajmani Sharmaji, who started with Dharma, and I think that was the right beginning. First of all, it's a pleasure for me to be here because it's C20 in G20. And Manipur is hosting it. Manipur has taken lead in it, I would say. That's something really wonderful because it's a beautiful land of beautiful people. I wish I could speak Manipuri because I could see you all involved when the Honorable Chief Minister was speaking in your own language. And with time, and maybe with the national education policy, which we have just adopted 2 years back, hopefully we will know more languages. And every mother tongue or every regional language will flourish, will flower, which is required for the richness of this nation and its legacy. Because you all know we love our language, you know. Whenever we meet somebody who can understand our language, we immediately start in that. And that's the beauty of human communication also, because we can communicate and the language is a medium of that. I am happy to be part of this conference again, because the mantra is Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, which is the mantra of G20 also. It's only India, as explained in the first session, with its spiritual legacy, spiritual traditions, that we can think of hosting the entire world as part of us, or becoming part of the entire world as integral beings of that universe which we say Vasudha, or the earth. I don't think there is any such mantras like we have when we start our day, that we worship the Mother Earth and we seek permission from Mother Earth. I can put my feet on you, please excuse me, please permit me, please pardon me. And it's not only Mother Earth of India. We never say only the Mother Bharat Mata. No, we only say Matribhumi or the Bhumi Mata. So it's the Mother Earth whom we worship in the morning. Manipur has a strong sense of community and unity. So I say it's the right place to host this conference. It is reflected in your culture, which we can see, whether it is the sports in terms of, you know, polo being originating here, or the Ras Leela, which sees unity in multiplicity also, because there are lots of dancers participating in it, but there is one, Krishna, which is the soul of that dance. And it's the love which manifests in this culture. So I think Manipur has a strategic location also, which is the gateway to prosperity and the gateway to, of course, the entire Northeast. It also has the sense of oneness, which is reflected again in its culture. Therefore, I say I am privileged to be part of this. Thank you, Swamiji, for choosing us, for coming here. And thank you, Mr. Singh, for making this possible. I stand here also as representative of the University Grants Commission, which has a pious duty to ensure that we are able to really execute or incorporate the tenets of National Education Policy 2020. And I'm sure those who are from the academic field would be aware of it or knowing it. Why did we need this national education policy? We had new education policies all the time, and even now we are really at times only thinking about a new education policy when we say NEP. But NEP 2020 is not only new, it has the entire nation. And that's why it talks about oneness, it talks about unity in diversity, it talks about Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, it talks about the rich tradition of this country, this land, and it talks about what in the session of Dharma, Swamiji said and Sharmaji said, that we all belong to one. It's only in our culture that we say, Aham Brahma Asmi. He said, Tat Tvamasi. We also say, Aham Brahma Asmi. There is no other religion where you can even dare to say, I am the God. If you say, I am the God, you are bound to be punished for that. But in our culture, in our dharma, we can say Aham Brahmasmi, because we all come from there. And it is this sense of power, this sense of faith, this sense of belief, and this sense of oneness which the national education policy wants to be pervading in all Indians, because that will connect us. And that will connect us to the world also, because if I am Brahma's part, then every human being is also Brahma's part. And in that, we can really love, honor, and have faith in that person. And that makes the entire universe a family, which we are saying through Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. This tradition of integral approach and multiplicity in beliefs has been the long tradition of India's existence, in fact. And this also recognized education as an instrument to transform human lives towards fulfillment. This holistic approach or holistic perspective of education was prevalent there in ancient India. That's why we had such great universities as Nalanda, Takshila, Vallabhi. You will find many more names, and I'm sure as we rediscover our history or reclaim our history, we will find many more names or institutions to add, where thousands of people from all around the world used to come. So we want to revive that tradition of education where there's a place for everyone. And I think it's a very, very fortunate moment for India. And I would say not only India, because India has been a name given by others, but Bharat, because Bharat has a different name. Bharat is something which shines. Bhasate iti Bharat. So Bharat which shines because of its knowledge, because of its intrinsic strength, because of its holistic approach, and which has been cradle to India's most ancient value system. I don't say only civilization or culture, it was the value systems. And this time we have been bestowed the honor because we are reclaiming our past, and the world is also looking at us to get into that spirituality, because they've seen socialism, they've seen capitalism. Somebody asked about capitalism, because capitalism only looks at the earth. And earth is not the same earth as Vasudha, but earth is the money. The capital becomes important, not human beings. So that is also not solving the problems of entire universe. Socialism has failed because it couldn't inspire individuals to go ahead in sustaining itself. That's why I think the world is looking at us, and maybe it's the third way. It could be the spiritual way. It could be the integral humanistic way, where human beings become central, or a oneness. Again, integral humanism is also ekatma manav, where human beings are one or integrated beings. So that the entire world is looking at, and I think it is the pious duty of India as a civilization and Indian universities as education institutions to fulfill this duty of sharing this with the entire world. Because only it is these kind of beliefs which will ultimately inspire the world to move towards peace. And they will be able to ensure peace among nations, inclusivity in growth, and sustainability in development. When we think about everyone, we become inclusive. When we think about nature as something very, very precious to us, then we become inspired for sustainable development. And as our Upanishad says, Ten tyakten bhunjitaha ishavasyam jagat idam. Because when the whole world is full of the presence of God, whatever we take, we must take after leaving for others. Ten takten bhunjita. We consume, but we consume with sacrifice. And if you've been part of any sacrifices or yagyas or havans, which different religious rituals usually take part in, then you will find, the mool mantra or the main mantras or the main motto of the havan or sacrifices. Sacrifice, I'm saying in the spirit of leaving things. So it says, idanamam. Idam Suryai, idam Chandrai, idam Pavanai, idan mam. So next sentence is it's not mine. And the moment we have this feeling that it's not mine alone, then we can be inspired to leave it for others, and that only can lead for sustainable development. It's not that G20 is happening for the first time in the world. G20 has been happening for many, many years now. But the new is that India is hosting it. India has got the presidency, and we have the occasion to inspire the world towards the value which we had. And that's why NEP, or National Education Policy, and education as such becomes the most important instrument in laying foundations for such a universe which takes everyone along, which achieves the unity of mind and body, which prepares the grounds for integrating local to the wider global. Honorable Chief Minister of Manipur was saying, talking about Miss Femina contest, that's something which is, universal. A girl tries to look beautiful, feels beautiful. A child is beautiful for every parent, but the contestation comes from the capitalist world. So that is the global capital, and you must be seeing for last many, many years, or rather I can say decades now, that these pageants have moved to the third world, because the third world had to become the market for all those products which are essential to look beautiful, as they say, or to appear beautiful, to be judged beautiful. Never mind if we can accept them without being swept from our feet. Let's welcome them all, because our motto is also Krinavanto Vishwam Aryam. We will accept everything, we will welcome everything, because we want to make the world a better place of good people. And so education again can do this. This is the time the world realizes that it's not merely, of course, technology is important, science is important, but we also find that after doing everything, after attaining the best of positions, after getting the best of income or the highest of income, there's something which remains in human beings. And that is the connect with the other world, or with the God as we call it. And that remains most important, because that fulfills, that sustains, and that ultimately gives us happiness, which can't really be explained in terms of happiness, because happiness is something quite momentary. We say Satya Chitta Anand. The pleasure which is dependent on Satya, truth, and also the conscience, the Chitta as we say. So an education system which tries to ensure that we are able to respect and practice truth, we are able to respect our conscience, and we are also able to be happy in this world despite all these kinds of limitations which are there. The education system, the modern education system which we are trying to carve out of the national education policy, will try to ensure that we have pride in our heritage, pride in our value system, pride in our legacy, but we also look forward to technology, we also look forward to research, we also look forward to investigations, and we also look forward to addition to knowledge. Because once you stop creating knowledge, you stop practicing dharma, then you stop being humans. So if you really want to live as human beings, and education, I think Sharmaji was referring to it, and Swamiji also referred, that education is not making you what it was supposed to make you. And I would start here, it's years old maxim, or Niti Shatak was part of it. So one value system which our education has is Vidya Dadati Vinyam. So education must give us humility. If educated is arrogant, one is really not educated. So education has to make us humble persons. It must give humility. Vidya dadati vinyam vinayati yati patratam. And after you become educated and humble, then only you become capable or able. That is your patrata. You become patra for the rest of life. Patratvat dhanam apnoti. After you become capable, then you try to earn your livelihood. You are really able to earn your livelihood, That is the right dhana also. That's the right money also. Not that you start earning in whatever way, at whatever time, and from whatever means. No. After being patra of it. And after you gain that, because dhan and earth are the same, so dhanat, kama, dharma, moksha. You can fulfill your desires also after you become capable of earning and humble and educated. And then you can go to the fourth goal of life, which is moksha. Of course, I don't know how many of us reach there, but the aim remains the same. And education also has to be one which doesn't bind you into compartments or classes or sections or groups. It must liberate. Vidya has to liberate. That is what education basically is. And liberate from what? Liberate from fear, liberate from ignorance, liberate from uncertainty. And the moment it liberates you from all these, you really become a different person. A person who really can take on the world, can teach the world, can take the world along and make the world a better place to live in. So basically it's about working together to create a cleaner, healthier, peaceful, technologically competent yet sustainably developed world, not only for India but the entire world. And you've seen India, which was called a developing state, could really produce vaccine for its entire population, could deliver it also, and could also help the not so fortunate neighbors. That's what being human is. And we must see that this becomes part of living for India, and education must become a part of it. I think the time is too short for going into this, but let me just give you a brief of the 4 priority issues which G20 working groups on education talked about. They focused on strengthening educational systems by making them more inclusive, accessible, and innovative. And NEP 2020 aims at them. Themes like educational poverty, universal quality education, continuity of learning in times of crisis, because we just came out of a pandemic or a crisis, which was universal crisis almost. And I think we are very fortunate that we are sitting here, and we must really miss those who left us during this crisis. Continuity of learning in times of crisis, how we adapted the technology during this period, supporting teachers, etc., were part of the G20 focus groups and presidencies till now. The education working group under G20, in its first summit, which was held in February 2023, focused on Nipun Bharat, skilled India, because skills have become something which are not recognized as part of education. And I, as long-standing teacher, and maybe it must have come to your mind also, that India became poorer when we started really discriminating between knowledge and skills, because skills are equally important. And when we started discriminating, then skills became secondary, and nobody would like to go into skills because skills were not knowledge. And knowledge was something which led you to white-collar jobs, and rest were blue-collar jobs which were less paid. So India lost its Sone ki Chidiya status or golden sparrow status, because that was coming out of its skills, which were very, very exceptional. I'm sure Manipur has lots of traditional skills which must be revived, which must be sustained, and which must be enriched, because they make us unique in our own way. That's what local and global connect must be there. And it also focused on toy-based learning, various television channels, 200 television channels were supposed to be imparting skills and education. The NETF, National Educational Technology Forum, and the National Credit Framework to the creation of skill labs with artificial intelligence and machine learning, technological advancements in automation. These were the priority areas by the focused working group. And I can recollect, when I was at IGNOU as Pro-Vice Chancellor, there was a huge demand from Army, because Army men retire at different stages at a very early age also. But so many of them are full of skills. But the skills were not being recognized by any school or university. And we started giving them certificates, which were challenged by some, but ultimately we won. And I think we really certified lakhs of army men who were really skilled, in fact, or were in fact rich enough or capable enough, but they only needed certification. So skill certification is important, and there may be many such groups. There may be many groups, communities, families who have inherited a legacy, have very good skills, but they are not recognized because they are not part of some ITIs or IITs, etc. I think this mindset change must come, but it must come along with the latest in technology also. So during the 2 days deliberation of this focus group on education, or the working group on education, again, it tried to ensure inclusive, equitable, these are very important words. They sound hackneyed, but they are important words in the context of human beings and especially India. Relevant and quality education and lifelong learning opportunities for all within the theme of one earth, one family, one future. And that's what links us with Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, because if we are one family, then surely we have one future. And if we have one future, the earth must be prepared for that future, which remains as enriching, as sustainable, and as loving and worshipable for all of us. The blend of technology, can I take a few minutes? Just a few minutes. Huh? So India proposes to build on, carry this blend of deliberations. And the aim was to identify and address major problems that are being encountered by learners across the world, preventing education from becoming an effective tool for improving lives, because it did not really improve lives as was supposed to be. Help build on the strengths acquired during the past years, especially the use of technology in education. So online education and digital university we are trying to establish hasn't really been successful yet, but that also is on the agenda, and then making it part of the traditional education system in blended form also, so that we can use both of them. Enable a relook at the teaching and learning methods, because the classroom teaching which we were having till now, I think made it very less interested, and so students would try to look this way or that way to get more information, to get knowledge, or to really be trained or get skills. So contents, curricula, pedagogies, assessment methods, etc. were to be really critically examined so that education could be more relevant for the capacities and skills required in the 21st century, and to ensure that education prepares learners of all ages and throughout life to address contemporary challenges, because education never ceases, in fact. It was only understood by the Macaulay's education system that when we do BA, we finish one stage, MA another stage, and after PhD, nothing. That was, I remember when I used to sit in the library after my job and PhD, then people used to ask me, what are you doing now? Means purpose was only to get the degree or to get the job. Although education is not merely that. In our system we say, Vidya Yashakari, Vidya Arthakari. It gives you both. So your yash never ends. Your money earning capability also never ends, in fact. And you must take them both together. That's what Indian education basically is different from others. And therefore, the NEP tried to have a spirit of ensuring foundational literacy and numeracy, because we had reports that there are people from schools who can't count, who can't read. So that was serious bell for us. Therefore, this was to be ensured. Then to ensure and rope in digital parts or technology in education. Then building capacities, again, for the future work, the kind of work which will be emerging in after the fourth industrial revolution, as we say, and the knowledge economy which we are trying to be, and then strengthening research collaborations. And this must be done with India's ancient belief that the world is one family. So if you have to help others, if you have to take help from others, you must be ready for it in order to find solutions to the common challenges that the planet is facing. We must envision and we must act together, including in the field of education. So the focus area is skills, capacities, becoming good citizens, becoming good human beings, and becoming good global citizens as well, which are not only merely successful in life, but also adaptable, productive, and innovative, so that they can meet the various challenges which are changing very fast in the 21st century, and they can really come out of it. Because if there is depression in educated persons, I think there is something lacking in education. Educated person should never be prone to depression. Depression comes out of ignorance only. It shouldn't come out of knowledge. Once you understand you are part of Brahma, you are part of universe, you really can't be depressed with anything. So education system needs to be as much improved, and it also must impart in human beings the ethical and moral reasoning, the computational thinking, knowledge and practice of human and constitutional values, gender sensitivity, because the world is really changing very fast, fundamental duties, citizenship skills and values, knowledge of India and the world, environmental awareness including water and resource conservation, sanitation and hygiene, and knowledge of critical issues facing local communities, states, the country, and the world. And it was this background with which the NEP was formed, or NEP was really framed. And I'm very sure with the state of globalization, young learners today belong to a generation where, you know, when they were born, it was a different environment. When they are young, it's a completely changing world, and it's prone to very, very technology-rich environments. So they must use this, and they must really learn how to live together, how to be, and how to really learn to learn in their entire life. If we are able to do that, I'm sure we'll have learners, or a generation of educated Indians who will not only be proud of themselves, who will not only be sure of themselves, but who will also be a very, very rich and sustainable addition to the entire world. And that's what we must all work for. Thank you once again, Mr. Singh and Swamiji, for calling me. I'm sure will lead to a very, very beautiful world, which is our duty and right both. Dhanyavad. Namaskar.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for your insightful and informative talk on education. Your passion and enthusiasm for education were clearly evident throughout the session. Thank you so much. Now the floor is open for the question and answer session, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, after that. Oh, okay. And yes, next speaker we have is Professor N. Lokendra Singh, Vice Chancellor, Manipur University. Professor N. Lokendra Singh is the Vice Chancellor of Manipur University. He is also a Fulbright Nehru International Education Administrators Fellowship Scholar. Professor Singh has a rich academic and administrative experience spanning over 3 decades. Prior to his appointment as Vice Chancellor, he served as the Pro-Vice Chancellor of Manipur University from 2019 to 2021. He has also held various positions at the university, including Dean of the School of Social Sciences and Head of Department of History. Professor Singh is a renowned historian and has authored several research articles, papers, and books. He has also served as a member of various committees and advisory boards, including the Manipur State Planning Board, the Indian Council of Social Science Research, and the Northeastern Council. Would like to request Professor N. Lokendra Singh for his presentation.
Honorable Swami Mitranandji, Lieutenant General L. Nisekan Singh Ji, Professor Susma Yadav, Member of the University Grants Commission, and Pro-Vice Chancellor of Haryana Central University, Shri Ashwini Kumar Ji, the Chairman of Loktak Development Authority, so learned Shri Brajamani Sharma, all the learned co-panelists, distinguished invitees, academics, friends from the media, and ladies and gentlemen. We have listened to a very illuminating presentation from Professor Susma Yadavji on the major implications and major issues which are involved in the formulation as well as the major objectives of the National Education Policy 2020. In the National Education Policy, there is a very important component on which I would like to dwell a little bit. The component is the Indian knowledge system. A number of higher educational institutions across the country, a good number of state boards, state councils, in the last 2 years have been engaged in the investigations and researches in trying to know more about the ancient and the medieval Indian knowledge system. We have heard a lot, we have read a lot on the contributions of the ancient Indians. Good number of ancient texts are there, Sanskrit texts are there, Tamil texts, Kannada texts, Telugu texts are there. But I was interested in trying to dwell on what actually is happening in Northeast India. In the inaugural session, Swamiji was referring to the existence of the global 32% biodiversity in Northeast India. Northeast India, we have more than 200 tribal communities. There are more than 150 dialects. Northeast India used to be the land route through which, starting from around 6th, 7th century AD, people from the West used to go to the Southeast Asia and East Asia. It used to be the land corridor to go to the Eastern world, a world in which the present government is trying to have a more serious interaction, both politically as well as economically. A world which was integrally linked with the ancient Indian civilization from around the Gupta times and even before that. And the vast resources of knowledge, the biodiversity, the historical, geographical and other astronomical informations that the different communities in this part of the country are relatively unknown, less explored, less studied. And all these informations, all these sources of knowledge and informations are required to be brought out for investigation, for experimentation to the bigger world. Of all the communities, except for the people in the Brahmaputra Valley, particularly the Assamese, for whom there are written text in the form of Buranjis and the Puthis, and also, of course, the valley people of Manipur who have settled down, who have stayed, who have evolved in this place in the last more than 2,000 years. They have also got various chronicles and the various ancient texts dealing with different aspects of culture, society, economy, water management, martial arts, and even the people of, say, Tripura, they've also got their written text in the form of Rajmala. But a number of other people, other ethnic communities who dwell in the Patkai range, in the Arakan Yoma, in the Lusai Hills, in the Naga Hills, there are no written text. But all those sources of informations, valuable informations of their society, their culture, knowledge of their interaction with the nature in the form of astronomical knowledge, in the form of mineral knowledge, in the form of ecological knowledge, all these informations were recorded in the mental text in the mind. And all those mental texts were formulated in the form of oral traditions, oral roars, in ballads, minstrel singers' text, in rites, in rituals. And all these rites and rituals, oral traditions, folklore, all these valuable sources of informations which have begun to be swept away by the ravages of time and the recklessness need to be very carefully considered. Let me say that starting from the second half of the 19th century, when the Christian missionaries started coming in this part of the country, and after adoption of Christianity, many of the important mental texts, or which I call as the mental text, but which usually were the oral traditions and the rites and rituals of this innumerable number of, say, communities in the Northeast India, have begun to be consistently and continuously ignored. And it is only with the coming of modern education that scholars, academics, they have begun to slowly realize the importance, the value of all those rich experiences, rich sources of informations for all these communities. And there is presently a massive onrus of our young scholars and academics trying to delve into the world of the pre-Christian, pre-19th century way of life, way of culture, their art, the architecture, the kind of technology that all these different communities used to have. One thing which is very important for all these oral traditions, oral sources, oral narratives, is that these have been passed on from generation to generations. And these traditions and oral narratives are being practiced in an inviolable way. I want to repeat this word, inviolable, because whatever we see in the form of oral laws, rites and rituals, the chants, which have been passed on from generation to generation, are still being preserved by the different communities across this region in a very carefully, in a very sacred and inviolable way. People, they are not trying to intrude upon the sanctity, the sacredness of those early system, early belief system, early way of life. And that is why when we talk about the Indian knowledge system, which constitute a very important and integral part of the course curriculum, both for the school, for the undergraduate programs, there should be a very conscious effort to integrate this kind of very important and very valuable sources of information from this part of the country. Because the objective of the national education policy is to integrate the ancient and medieval knowledge system with the contemporary and the modern knowledge system of the world. Every country in the world is now trying their best to reform, to bring about changes in their system of education in order to carve a positive kind of a growth trajectory for the entire humanity in the world. And it is in this context that I would like to refer to certain examples of the different ethnic communities. For example, if we talk about the oral traditions and the oral narratives of the Lepchas of Sikkim. The Lepchas of Sikkim, right from the ancient times, they had a very good knowledge about the southern Himalayan foothills. And in their oral traditions, there are informations of not less than 200 peaks of the Kanchenjunga range. And they have so much of experiences in trying to deal with the changing ecology and environment of the southern Himalayan foothills, and that is the basis of their movement, which they started. They started popularizing the masses, they tried to arouse the consciousness of the Lepcha people, and this is the basis of their protest against the recent move for the construction of a dam in their region. Similarly, the Ravas, for example, of Assam, they were a very serious sky gazers. They had a very interesting knowledge about the solar system. They used to consider the marks on the moon as some kind of a banyan tree upside down. They used to believe that the Milky Way is some kind of a pathway for the movement of the elephants, because elephants are so popular and there are innumerable number of elephants in the Brahmaputra Valley. I mean, during those days. Similarly, the Meiteis of Manipur, for example, there are texts. There is a text called Hizen Hirao. Hizen Hirao is the text of a song which is used to be sung on the last day of every Lai Harauba, or the festivals celebrating the local deities. And the Hizen Hirao is nothing but the pain and anguish of the tree, because the tree was used to be cut down for making of boats. In Manipur, during the 19th, 18th and 17th century, every family in the valley used to have a small boat, because this was one of their very important source of communication. Practically almost every family used to have one or two pony also, because that was again a very important means of their say transportation. So therefore, even now if we go to the Loktak area, because there are so many lakes all across the valley, all these lakes are being filled up slowly and gradually because of the continuous and constant process of urbanization and modernization, plus the ongoing process of weathering and denudation that is, say, taking place in the last, very intensely in the last, say, 100 years. So therefore, so similarly there are a number of texts which was used to be prepared during the 15th, 16th, 17th centuries, which are needed to be translated into the modern Indian languages, so that scholars across the country can examine the relevance, the importance and the validity of all these ancient knowledge which are available in Manipur. Similarly, among the Kukisins of Manipur, for example, there is a particular chants which the Kukisins of Churachandpur used to recite in the time of a person's illness or in the time of a person's death. It's known as Khochok. Now, when one examines what is the content of this chant, it shows that this chant is nothing but, it contains the name of a number of villages in the Irrawaddy Valley, in the Chinwin Valley, all these communities who traveled during the ancient and medieval times. They used to, formulate all their ancient histories for their posterity in the form of a chant, so that it will remain permanently as an important source of information and knowledge for their people, for the posterity. And that's why they have included it in the form of a chant, because chants are normally inviolable, and any attempt to intrude upon it, change it, it's supposed to bring about, certain adverses in that particular individual or to the family. Similarly, the Kuki-Chins, they have a number of, folk songs revealing about their ancient times of how they were living in the caves, how they were trying to navigate with the Chinwin River as well as Irrawaddy River, how they were trying to come out of those forests in the Hukong Valley. So, therefore, these are very less studied, very less examined and less investigated areas of, Indian knowledge system, which I believe should constitute a very important component of the Indian knowledge system, which is incorporated in the new education policy. I would like finally to suggest a few measures. I've already submitted it to the organizers, of course, that we need some kind of a relook in the curriculum and the syllabus of the existing formal secondary and undergraduate education to accommodate some of the important aspects of what I have already very briefly narrated. And that will form and that will constitute an important part of the Indian knowledge system, along with the knowledge system which we get from ancient texts, ancient Sanskrit texts, Tamil texts, texts available in Hindi and other modern Indian languages. I would also like to suggest that there has to be a very conscious effort on the part of the higher educational institutions across the region, the active NGOs, and also the provincial government. There has to be conscious effort to document the available, oral text, oral narratives, oral traditions, and it should be properly assessed, analyzed, systematized, and incorporated for the posterity as well as for the contemporary student. Oral tradition and the literature of even the minority community on culture, on astronomy, on environment and ecology should also be included, because unless we do it in the very near future, this will all be destroyed by the ravages of time due to sheer neglect and ignorance, and just the thought that it's not important, that's not going to help many of the issues which are likely to come up. And this is all that I would like to appeal to all the learned academics and scholars for giving such a indulgence and for considerations. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor N. Lokendra Singh, Vice Chancellor, Manipur University. Appreciate the time and effort you put into preparing for the talk, as well as for sharing your expertise and experience with the audience. Thank you so much, sir. Now the floor is open for the question and answer session. Yes, we have.
Good morning to everybody. My question is to Dr. Susmaji. I believe the syllabus of especially the younger classes are being upgraded or modified from time to time. And presently, what I see is that our own heroes and our own culture, tradition, etc., these things occupy lesser significance compared to the like foreign forces. It is a fact that the foreign forces have many times invaded and occupied our Bharatvarsha for a considerable period of time. However, in the younger students, more of our the valor and the great virtues of our own leaders should be taught in the younger people, so that the sense of pride and belongingness is developed. However, we also cannot forget the fact that our country has been invaded and occupied by the foreign forces, and these things should be taught to the higher level students who are specializing in history, and that is what I wanted to request. Thank you.
Thank you. I think it's not a question as such. You have given a very good suggestion, and I value that. But we are changing. No, you are right. We are changing the curriculum at the school level, at the higher education level. It's taking time. It can't be changed, because even if we have changed the curriculum, there are no texts available, as you just heard Professor Lokendra Singh, because our narratives have to be evolved over time. So more and more books, I would, if there are academics here, I'm sure they're there. So I will request the academics to write such textbooks, get research done under you about such heroes, about such histories, and about such traditions which are there in all various communities. Then we'll be able to really make our history as a history of our own nation or our own local traditions as well. So your concern is our concern, and we are working on it. Soon you will be able to see the changes which are coming up. But it takes time. Thank you.
Very warm good morning, everyone. I express my heartfelt thanks to Professor Susma Yadavji for giving such an enlightening speech. I have a couple of questions or observations I just would like to get it clarified from you and Madam. One is about the holistic approach in the education system. That is the one agenda in the NEP 2020. In fact, the education should be overall development in terms of mind, body, and spirit. And that's why we are focusing on the knowledge, skill, and attitudes or the value system. How we will be integrating all these things in the present education system, that is, we would like to get some more insight from you, number one. Number 2 point, from the NEP 2020, there is one important agenda, that is the internationalization of the higher education system. As on today, to my understanding, any one of the Indian universities, including the top-notch Indian Institute of Science and IITs, etc., is unable to figure in the top 100 world ranking of the universities. So keeping these things in mind, as an honorable member of the Universities Grants Commission, what do you suggest for the Indian universities? What are the areas to be focused on? At least our universities and the higher educational institutions should be at par with the global level. Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah. Thank you. They are very, very apt and relevant questions, and National Education Policy deals with them. So holistic education, I'm sure you yourself have given an answer, but holistic education is when you're able to take knowledge in an integrated way. What we've done till now is we have compartments: arts, humanities, education, commerce, science. So one doesn't touch the other. If you are science people, then you don't know the languages, or humanities are not for you. I can remember, and I'm sure the same situation must be prevailing till now, of course, till the NEP gets in practice. When I tried to have science with Sanskrit in Delhi, I would say 60s, we searched the entire Delhi. No school offered Sanskrit with science. So either you take science or you take Sanskrit. That's how we were cut from our ancient knowledge system. So which meant that Sanskrit is something, you know, which is language or ritualistic, and science is something which is more scientific, more research based, or maybe more innovative. That was cutting people in, or their knowledge system, their belief system, into something which was really not desirable for education. So we had scientists who had no ethics, or we had engineers who would build any kind of roads and buildings and without thinking about the repercussions, or we had doctors who also really lacked in ethics. I can say almost all the professions which were to be respected because of their professional ethics lacked ethics, because they were not part of their curricula, they were not part of their training, except the oath which they take at times ceremonially. Therefore, NEP looks at integrating the education system. And more so, you know, your parents say that you have to be an engineer, your parents say you have to be a doctor, you go there, and then you're not able to cope with it, or you don't like it, or you don't find it interesting, then there's no going back. And those who are in humanities, if they wish that they want to be scientists, they may have the temperament, they may have the capability. For them, there is just absolutely no entry in the system till now. So now we are trying to open up with multiple exit, multiple entry, and multiple subjects on choice, because it's a curricula which integrates various subjects. That's what holistic education is. So, you know, we are doing away with extracurricular, co-curricular. Sports was extracurricular, culture was co-curricular. All these words, they are essentially part of the curricula, and they will test you in your abilities, and they'll give you the chance to become or choose any of these, or even combine some of these. That's what holistic education is. And about internationalization of higher education, I chaired the group on international of higher education framed by the MHRD and UGC, and we thought about it. You know, I think what you say is a concern in present day, but I can give you an answer. Till recently, and even now, we have more students than educational institutions. So we never thought of getting into this number game. India never really tried. And we never had this kind of, you know, ranking or giving them grades, etc. It's very recent. I think 15 years back, I had given this reply to the credit agencies that India never thought education was for market. India never thought it is for the consumers. India never thought, but now GATT has come and we are in the market. So if we are in the market, we will surely excel there also. It's very recent and very nascent. Soon enough, the institutions are coping up. And I'm sure within next 2 decades, India will figure in the best of institutions. That's why we are opting for internationalization also. Its diversity of students, its innovativeness, its openness, its holistic nature, all these which were part of certain institutions in the world are being adopted by Indian education. And then we'll have something more also, which is the emotional quotient, which is the spiritual quotient, and that will make us the best of institutions. Be rest assured, in the times to come, we will catch up with the best. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Last question. Yes, we have.
Thank you, ma'am, for your enlightened speech again. Yeah, I am Kadam Ibotombi Singh, the faculty from the Department of Sociology, Manipur University. And I am very striking with your words. You have said that humility becomes the essence of true education. So my simple and humble question is that how can practices of humility be taught in the new education policy? So that is my simple question.
Although, humility is not taught, like values are not taught. They need to be practiced and ingrained from the practice. So like the guru in our, ancient system used to say, take the best that we have to offer. So Satyam vad dharmam char swadhyayat na pramad. They were the three things. You speak truth, you practice dharma, and dharma means values only. A dharmic person cannot be arrogant. A ritualistic person may be, but a dharmic person cannot be. Similarly, an educated person will never be arrogant because ahankar is taken by vidya. It is only with the ignorant who are arrogant, in fact. So first the teacher have to be, in fact, ingraining this. Because if a teacher is arrogant, a teacher can't teach humility. So we will have to change first, all of us. And then the students will inherit it naturally. And we could also have some texts, the Niti Shatakas that we had, or the Upanishads, small parts of them, or the stories which are ingrained there, which will very, very easily teach these values. What had happened is we had done away with them. We took a curricula which was not part of our culture, which was not part of our ethos, which was not part of our tradition, and therefore we were teaching to the students which did not really strike their mind and heart. Once we really ingrain our own ethos, they'll start learning it better. But like the Guru says, after Satyam vad dharmam char and swadhyayat, swadhyaya also, self-study always gives you lots more learning entire life, and humility is also one of them. Because as they say, the more we know that how less we know. And that gives you the feeling of or sense of humility. So if you are really studying, you do become humble. And then the Guru also says, you may have seen some good qualities in me, take them with you. But you may have also seen some qualities which are not so good. We are all human beings. Please leave them here. So if we teachers are able to give this as parting advice to our students, I am sure they will learn humility. Because if the teacher admits that I may also have certain shortcomings, the student will always take it. Nobody is complete, nobody is perfect, and nobody is fully knowledgeable, because we keep learning. That gives us a sense of humility. I hope I could at least touch your query. Thank you.
I just want to add to what Madam has said. See, when we talk about education, education is not purely classroom education. In the classroom, our interaction with the teachers or with the syllabus is limited. Education is, I'll put it this way, was imparted to me by my parents, my colleagues, my roommates, my friends and others. There, nobody taught me. I didn't know how to tie a shoelace from a classroom. I was taught by my parents. I didn't know how to wash my face. No teacher taught me. I learned it from my parents. Subsequently, I learned it from my friends. So, as has been brought out, that humility is purely, we cannot say that it will be a classroom subject. It has got to be, like somebody has very aptly brought out, when we use the word, I am hungry and I am foolish. Many people who do not know, they laugh. That what kind of man you are? I said that I am hungry because I am hungry for more knowledge, not the food part. Okay. And I am foolish because there are many things in this world which I do not know, even now at this age. So it is how you look at the things. So I will put it this way, when we talk about humility, it has got to be the society, the parents, the friends, and the whole system as a team has got to teach our younger people on humility. And it cannot be purely a school or textbook subject as far as humility is concerned. That is my way of thinking. I'm not an educationist, but that is what I feel.
Right.
Yeah, I think this will be the last question. I'm from a DBT Institute. Like now it is like in the education system, like in all the world, especially in Indian scenario, the parents, the school authorities, the teachers are more concerned about the educations, like the humanity that we are talking about, you know, the discipline, that it is very lacking behind, I believe. Because everyone is concerned about education, about the career. So what will be the reformation? I think this case happening in this Ramakrishna mission and all is a different case, but maximum in all the educational system in India. So the humanity, the discipline, the social, it's lacking behind. So is there any reformation that you have taken up from the UGC side, like how the reformation, the changes can bring up in this?
Thank you. That's, again, I think it's very important. But UGC, of course, doesn't deal with school education. And therefore, in schools, it can't really bring changes. But the NEP 2020 surely talks about it. It talks about school education. It talks about early childhood care for the first time. No education policy before that thought about it. And that's very important because it's the early childhood where these qualities can really be learned or not ingrained. So early childhood care at some at good schools or at good play schools and with play methods only. It says that education must be given an environment where you want to go. You don't want to run away. You really want to go to your school or your class or your play school, whichever it is, where you are taught, not by bookish methods or by the methods of, you know, discipline also doesn't come only with, strictness. It also comes with a beautiful environment, where you can really touch the child's mind, you can really touch the child's heart, and you can create curiosity, you can create awareness and all these qualities. So teachers are the key area or the focus area of the NEP, because it's the teachers who will start changing the environment. And when you change the environment and you change the curriculum, the change that you are looking for, or which all of us think are desirable or essential, will naturally come. I don't have the time to go into the details, but NEP 2020 really focuses on this, and we are able to, if we are able to really cater to that stage of early childhood care, I'm sure there'll be kids or there'll be students who will be better trained in understanding, in learning, and coping with the new kinds of information which barges upon them later. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor. With the approval of the moderator, would like to end the second session.
And just to add, because now sports and culture are also becoming important part of it, not extracurricular. So giving them a healthy mind, a healthy body, which we call Panchakoshiya Vikas in Indian tradition, where the mind is balanced, the pran is also balanced, where your body is healthy and your mind is also awakened, and you have Vijnana. The information is also constantly coming. Then you will have a perfect individual who can really cope with all kinds of stresses, all kinds of challenges, and remain ethical at times of dilemma also. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. That was really a very satisfying answer. Thank you so much, the professor, for the presentation. That was a valuable contribution to our understanding of the importance of education and its impact in our lives. Thank you so much. And to begin the third session, its topic is ecology. Would like to call upon the dais the speakers, Professor Rajiv Sinha, Department of Art Sciences, IIT Kanpur, and Dr. Vinita, IISER Bhopal.
I would just like to say, till yesterday I was not coming. I'm so thankful after your questions and your queries, my coming here becomes really worthwhile. Thank you for asking these questions. And thank you, Asniji.
Thank you so much, ma'am. We are really delighted to have you with us today. Thank you so much. Now I would like to request our first speaker, Professor Rajiv Sinha. Rajiv Sinha is a professor of art sciences at Indian Institute of Technology, Kanpur, with a master's degree in applied geology from University of Roorkee, now IIT Roorkee, in 1987, and a PhD in river sedimentology from University of Cambridge in 1992. Professor Sinha is one of the foremost river scientists in the country. He was the lead of the river morphology group to develop the Ganga River Management Plan. He is well recognized internationally for his significant contributions on river dynamics, flood risk analysis, river health assessment, and wetland studies. In most studies, he extensively uses multi-source remote sensing data for developing ecosystem-based approach for river and wetland management. Professor Sinha has published more than 200 papers with over 8,000 citations. He is a recipient of Alexander von Humboldt Fellowship 2000, National Mineral Award 2002, and SS Mer Award 2006. He is a fellow of the National Academy of Sciences, Allahabad, and Indian Academy of Sciences, Bangalore. He is also a member of the National Wetlands Committee. Ladies and gentlemen, Professor Rajiv Sinha. And he is also a chairman of Expert Advisory Committee on Loktak Lake and Associate Wetlands.
Thank you very much for the rather long introduction. I'm humbled by that. Honorable Swamiji, General Mission, and Asniji, thank you so much for inviting me here. It's a pleasure to be back in Manipur all the time. We've been here many times last couple of months in connection of the Loktak Lake Committee. So I have chosen a topic which is called the ecology, related to ecology. I'm not an ecologist, I'm primarily an earth scientist. So we'll talk about the rivers and wetlands ecosystems in the context of Anthropocene. Now, if you have not heard the word Anthropocene, Anthropocene is a word which is used to designate the time when the human impacts have become very, very important. So that it has started impacting the natural processes which are operating on the system. So we have started using a word called Anthropocene, which is a sort of a geological term to designate the period of the Earth which is highly impacted by the human impacts. So I have taken up this topic in the context of the theme of this workshop, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. And the idea is, next slide please. So just to start putting the context, I'm not sure whether people at the back are able to see. Maybe we can remove some of these chairs, maybe. So anyway, so putting things in context, the Mother Earth was formed about 4.7 billion years ago. But humankind emerged only about 250,000 years ago. And we are the 800th generation of the Homo sapiens. And out of that, the first 600 generations, they lived in caves. Next slide, please. We are also sixth and eighth generation since the mechanical power replaced the animal power. We are 4 to 5 generations since cars were invented. Next slide, please. But we are also the first generation with the intensity of economic development that our presence is starting to be felt by the Earth's ecosystem. And at the same time, we are also the first generation to understand the collective impact of our actions on this planet. And fortunately, we are in a position now, an opportunity to redefine our relationship with the planet and to move it from the sense of exploitation to the sense of sustainability. that primarily defines what we want to do, in this whole concept of transforming our planet and transforming our lives, through whatever action we have been listening to dharma and through education and whatever else. Science does play a very important role, because in this world, in the modern evolving world, the scientific innovations have to be used judiciously to change our lives. We are not the same Earth we were living in the caves. We are living on this planet. We are exploiting our resources, and therefore the technological innovations have to be used to minimize the impact of these interventions which we have actually been making. Next slide, please. So among the major challenges which we are facing today, water is one of the most important one, because this is not just a scarcity of water, there's also a gross misutilization of the water as well in many sectors. And I have chosen today to talk about two important systems. One, the rivers, and how the rivers ecosystems have been impacted, and second, the wetlands. There are many other changes as well. Now, talking about rivers, we call ourselves the river valley civilizations. All our ancient civilizations have evolved along the rivers. And that underlines the importance of the rivers in our culture, not just the ancient culture, but also in the modern context. Because we have called ourselves as Indus Valley Civilization, Nile Valley Civilizations. We have never called as, Indian Ocean Civilization or Black Sea, civilization. So civilizations have always, evolved along the rivers, and we have had a very special position of the rivers in the modern context as well as in the ancient context. Still, even though it's one of the most essential element of the natural resources, it has been constantly threatened by the human activities. A river is a very small part of the hydrological cycle. It's only about less than 0.03% of the total water which is available on this planet, but still a very, very important resource. So what we need to have is a sustainable society that meets the needs and aspirations of the present, but without compromising the ability to meet those of the future. That's very, it's a very heavy loaded statement, but I think we need to learn to practice that through our improved education system and to the practice of dharma, as we've been listening since morning. Now, next slide, please. So out of this, next slide. So many rivers across the world are in crisis. India is not excluded from that reality. There has been several discussions and thoughts about how the rivers have changed. We are occupying the space which is supposed to be used by the rivers. There are problems of huge water quality issues. There are problems of gross misutilization of the water resources and so on. So the challenge before us is that how do we balance, next slide. So the challenge before us is how do we balance the needs of the society and the needs of the natural system which we have. So therefore, the effective water resource technologies, water resource management technologies, next, just press that once more. That is the balance which we need to ultimately make as to how do we balance the human needs and the ecosystem protection. That's where I would like to focus on. Next slide. So therefore, we have, in the last couple of years, we've been trying to promote the concept of river science, in lieu of the river engineering, which is a very hydrology and a very commodity-based approach. And we try to bring in the integration of the different aspects of the rivers, right from ecology, geology, chemistry, and how they are actually interacting with each other and trying to form a feedback system. Next slide. Next, just press that once more. So, no, go back. Sorry. So the idea is that we must start thinking of the rivers as an ecosystem. We must talk about the ecosystem integrity, resilience, river condition, and river health, which is a very important term to use now. We must compare the status and the condition of a river with the human body, and what will happen, what does happen, for example, when we get sick, for example. So there are rivers which are sick, and we need to differentiate them from the healthy rivers, and then ultimately try to move towards river rehabilitation or river restoration and so on. This was the idea which we gave when we were working on the Ganga River Basin Management Plan. We gave that to the government in 2017, and part of this are now being implemented. So the mantras here are that we must respect the diversity and complexity. Every river is not the same, and therefore you cannot have a same prescription for all the rivers. We must start caring for river health, and we must move from the river use to interaction. We must learn to interact with the river as to what exactly is they doing. And that is basically what we say when we think about the river future. What is the river going to look like in the next 30, 40 years? Or what are we going to leave behind for the next generations to come? That's basically our thinking is, and at the moment. Next slide, please. So, it's running slow because you may not have copied it to your hard disk. It's a large file. It's running from the pen drive, I think. Yeah. So one of the ideas, for example, we tried to promote when we talked about the environmental flows as to how much river, how much water is needed for the river. And the earlier thinking has been that, okay, we must allocate the river to agriculture, to industry, to humans, and everything else. And if there is something left, we'll leave it to the life of the river. We propose that the whole matrix has to be reversed. We actually gave the concept that the amount of flow which needs to be given to the river must be divided by the ecology. Okay, and that's where we gave the concept of flow indicators, which means that what is the indicative species which is required to be sustained at a given place in a given river, and what is the amount of water that species is going to need for the rest of the year. Once you allocate that, then you are allowed to allocate the rest of the water for the other uses. So I think the whole matrix had to be changed, and we gave this report to the government, and there are sections of the rivers where this report is now being implemented, with this kind of a perspective where the ecology and the life which is being sustained by the river is very, very important. We were asked these questions that, okay, why do we give this so much water to the life? You have to decide whether the farmers who are dying, or whether you want to save the farmers, or whether you want to save the dolphins. I think this is a very, hypothetical question, because tomorrow, when the dolphin dies, it is actually an indication of the river which is dying, right? And therefore, if the river dies, the farmer will die automatically anyway, right? So there is no correlation of this kind of analogies here. So we gave that concept, and I think this is now being taken up by the government. Next slide, please. So therefore, that brings us to the whole concept of assessment of the river health. We must learn to differentiate the sick rivers from the healthy rivers. We must design the indicators of stress which the river's ecosystems are actually undergoing. And for that, one of the first things which we need to know, what is our reference or the baseline conditions. Now, when we fall sick, we go and get our test done, and we compare our parameters to the baseline data. And then we say how sick we are. And therefore, depending upon our sickness, the doctors prescribe certain medicines. And these medicines are not going to be the same for all of you, right? So therefore, deciding how sick the rivers are and what are the drivers which is causing that sickness, that is one of the first things which we need to learn about that. And that's what we are aiming to eventually. Next slide, please. So this is just too much of a detail, but the idea is we identify these indicators. There are many problems the rivers are facing: urbanization, sand mining, pollution, degraded ecology. But there are different problems of different rivers in different stretches. And therefore, which part of the river is facing which problem is very, very important. And what was the river like when the problems were not there? That is your reference condition or baseline conditions. And how would you like the river to be? It may not be possible to restore the river to the original condition, but we may be able to at least show that it's a river and not a canal and not a drain, for example. That is the concept we are trying to actually build in, and therefore, this rehabilitation process has to be very, very different for different rivers. Next slide, please. Let's look at another important system. Wetlands. Wetlands are a very unique ecosystem. They are called biological supermarket because the amount of biodiversity they store in them is absolutely amazing. They are also called the kidneys of the landscape because they purify a lot of water which goes through them, and then you get a clean water out of that and so on. They are also been used for flood reduction because they act like a sponge and so on. In spite of all of that, I would think that wetlands are perhaps one of the most neglected water bodies in most of the world, not just India, for example. A lot of wetlands have been occupied for human occupation or for agricultural lands and so on, and we've been losing the wetlands like anything. Next slide. So the first thing which again has to be understood that wetlands are not an isolated water body. They are a part of a larger landscape. Okay? So unless you understand the connection of that wetland with the larger landscape, a river, for example, or surrounding lakes, for example, and so on, you can never ever design a sustainable strategy, for a wetland systems like that. So what we come up with in a scientific world, we call that concept as a connectivity concept, how the wetlands are connected to the surrounding areas, and unless you restore that connection, the wetlands are never going to be rehabilitated. That's the first concept which I wanted to highlight here. Next slide, please. So I will leave this, it's too complicated, but just a message here is that it's the drivers of the wetland degradation can be many, and there are also feedback systems, which are operating there. So the groundwater systems, the connectivity, the surrounding streams, everything basically is playing a role in the wetland degradation, and what we need to understand, this complexity is very, very important to understand. Next slide, please. This is an example of how an individual wetlands can degrade, fragmented. This is an example from one of the Ramsar site called Khabar Tal in North Bihar, and you can see between 1976 and 1617 how the wetlands got fragmented because it lost its connection with the surrounding landscapes, and therefore we have now suggested some measures. There are factors and drivers for which control that fragmentation, etc., and so on. Next slide, please. These are some examples of how the fragmentation, how a part of the wetland now looks like agricultural land, for example, isolated pools of water, and pumping of a lot of water for groundwater abstractions and so on. So a lot of these factors are there, and which are very, very specific to these kind of wetlands. Next slide, please. Again, an example of how nearby area, Chilika in Odisha, how the Chilika was restored between 1998, 88, 2000 and 2010. So it is possible through a sustainable intervention, it is possible to restore a system like this. Chilika was very bad in 2000. You can see that the wetland was almost gone. All you see is all the red colors thing, which are actually algal bloom, which was covering almost 70-80% of the wetland. And now you see all this blue color is, Chilika is now very nicely restored thanks to the Chilika Development Authority, which put in a huge effort in doing that. Next slide, please. So, just to close my thoughts on this, I can't get away without talking about Loktak here. We have been working on this Loktak problem for the last couple of months. I was chairing a committee. So the Loktak has also undergone a huge transformation. I have put together a satellite image of the Loktak area in 1969, which was collected by the American spy satellites, and the Loktak, how it looks like in 2022. And one of the most remarkable features you see that how not just the Loktak, but all the associated wetlands were a part of the whole system. A very large complex of wetlands were there in as early as about 1969, which is not so long ago. Many of you who are sitting here, they might have actually seen how the Loktak looked like in 1969, for example, and how the Loktak now looks today. It's totally waterborne only in the central part. All the surrounding wetlands are gone, degraded or occupied for agricultural use or by aquaculture and so on. A lot of settlements have actually started to come up because there is a dry land available and so on. So we identified as a part of the committee to which Sushma ji was also a member, as a committee we identified some major problems in the Loktak's setting, hydrological alterations because of the Thai barrage, exponential growth of the Fumdis, siltation, encroachments, declining biodiversity, loss of connectivity, declining ecosystem services, and then of course lack of the proper governance structure. So all of these problems were identified as a part of the committee. We have submitted the report to LDA, which should be released very soon, and hopefully some action will start soon. Next slide, please. And these are some of the major recommendations. You will hear more about that from us later on, but we are suggesting a large catchment management strategy for a sustainable land use. We are looking at we are recommending review of the Thai barrage operation and possible decommissioning, wetland area management of the Loktak complex, improvement of the water quality, improved management of the Kaibul Lamjo National Park, restructuring of the LDA for a better governance, and most importantly, the scientific empowerment of the Loktak. It's very, very important to understand that it is you who will ultimately have to manage the whole system, and that is why the scientific personnel have to be, scientific knowledge and personnel, they have to be, brought in there. And then we can't obviously manage a system like that without a very active community participation and the livelihood in hand. There are hundreds and thousands of people who are dependent on this Loktak at the moment, and therefore their needs and their perceptions have to be taken into account as well. Next slide, please. So I would close by saying a few things, that the rivers in our country need an ecosystem-based approach for their sustainable management. We need to bring in the traditional knowledge. We have been talking about that since morning, and we need to develop innovative methods for river health assessment. We need to understand that rivers are live, live entities, and that in our country rivers have been now given the status of the live entity and so on. And we need to therefore build a very solid decision support system for preserving and developing the river systems in India. Similarly, approach for integrated wetland management has to be taken up. We need to understand they are a part of a connected system, and therefore we can't focus our attention to a small water body. A delineation of the wetland, encroachment identification, and most importantly, the wetlands are also in many, many regions. Loktak is a very great example of that. It's a very important socio-economic system. Okay? So improvement of the ecosystem services and livelihood is a very important component, should be a very important component of the regeneration of the lake systems as well. So I'll stop here for today. I hope I made it simple. Professors are known to be complicated people, but I have tried to make the science part as simple as possible for you. Thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you so much, Professor Rajiv Sinha, Professor, Department of Art Sciences, IIT Kanpur, and yes, would like to request Dr. Vinita.
Hi, I'm Vinita Gowda. I'm from ISER Bhopal. Let me start with thanking the organizers for inviting me here. I'll start with Mr. Singh and also Professor Sinha, who I actually met during this conference, but turned out that we have many, many connections in the past that we didn't know about, and also Swamiji. And it's really nice to meet Professors Lokendra Singh and Sushma Yadavji, and it's really very nice to have this kind of an enclave where, because I've never had a talk where the next talks will be by very experienced brigadiers and people from the defense. So I really look forward to the geopolitical questions and the talks, because as you will see, I'm going to try to sort of expand this idea of what one world is from the Indian subcontinent to what I kind of work in, which is Asia. So for me, my world is Asia, which includes the Indian subcontinent. And I'm going to try to convince you that we are similar and yet not similar. We're diverse and yet the same in my sort of 15, 20 minutes of short talk. So can we please start? So I'm a botanist by training. And I like to say it that way because I think plants are very simple to look at. We all know plants around us. But I'm an evolutionary biologist also by training, which is a slightly more complex world, because we talk in terms of very technical processes of how we came about. As you all know, that the world of the Earth is about 4.7 billion years, right? And billion is, if you want to just conceptually remember, has about 9 zeros. Life on Earth is about 3.7 billion years. Again, 9 zeros. And the life that I'm going to talk about in the northeast of India, which we've been focusing for the last 10 years, is about 7 million years, which is about 6 zeros. So for me, we are considering that the Earth is billion years, and we are only, northeast flora that I'm working on is only 7.5 million years old. We are technically very young, okay? But we are also old because if you remember the Indian subcontinent, it split off from Africa, acted as a raft, and then hit the Eurasian plate, which formed the Himalayas. That entire raft process is what we are trying to capture in the science that we do in my lab, using various techniques, and we're not technique bound, so we frame a question and we go after that question and try to solve it. So I'm going to try to make it as simple as possible, and as Professor Sinha said, as professors, we make things complicated because life is complicated. But I also am very particular of keeping everyone awake, so I'll have questions in the middle, so don't try to sleep, okay? So I'm going to talk about when plants speak, that is using plants to understand 3 terminologies: ecology, evolution, and history of our region. For now, the region is Southeast Asia and India, which is pretty much the northeast of India. Next, please. All right, so till this slide moves, all the plants on the top are northeastern, or plants that I study and are from the northeast of India, and many of you may probably be familiar with them. In general, they come under the large family called gingers, okay? And so ginger is what we eat in our tea or in our cooking. The second ginger that you will be familiar with is turmeric, right? Turmeric is also a ginger, slightly different genus. The third you will be very familiar with is cardamom, which is also a ginger. The fourth that you will know is what we know as the black ginger, or the black cardamom, which is Alpinia, also a ginger. So what I'm going to talk about today are 3 terminologies. If I can introduce you by the end of the talk, I would think that I've gotten through to you. Ecology, when we talk ecology, it's the interaction of organisms with themselves, different species, and also with the environment. When I refer to evolution, I'm talking about, we're looking at how species evolve in terms of the time, and that's why I'm interested in that 7.5 million years is very important time for me, as opposed to 12 million years, as opposed to 15 million years, as opposed to 60,000 years. So 60,000 is extremely, extremely young and very recent. And the history, therefore, is connecting this evolution or study of the past in this millions of years we're talking about, not in hundreds of years. But like what Professor Sinha showed, changes that we are doing because of our manipulation, because of whatever capitalist ideas we may be having, is happening in tens of years, okay? So what has taken millions of years to evolve in our landscape is immediately getting denuded because of our yearly sort of pursuit of whatever may be, the immediate sort of award or the immediate sort of benefit out of the system that we call as nature. And the region that I'm talking about is the Indian subcontinent. So everything that I'm going to show are all the results of my students, my PhD and master's students, many of them who have graduated. So far, at least 6 of my PhD students have worked in the Northeast, and 1 PhD life is about 6 years of work. So if you think about it, it's about 36 years of work that we're seeing that we have tried to do it in 10 years. So it's a lot of work, and it's very complex. So if I take a little longer than 15 minutes and I keep you away from your lunch, please be a little patient with me. Next, please. So like I said, on today's menu for all of you, I'm only going to talk about 1 plant family called the gingers. And specifically 1 genus. Genus is like, my name is Vinita Gowda. Vinita is the genus name in the plant world, and the species name would be Gowda, or rather in the reverse way, it will be Gowda is the genus name and Vinita is the species name. So because my brother's last name is also Gowda, my father's last name is also Gowda, but our names keep changing. So in the taxonomic world, every plant has 2 names, the first name and the last name. The first name tells you what the genus it belongs to. The second name is the species name. Now, when we say there's a biodiversity is high, we are saying that the species are different and also these genera are very different. And we're interested in to say when species diversify, when genera diversify, which is almost like looking at your family tree and saying, why is my family behaving in this way? Why do we look like this? And why does my uncle's family look slightly different? So it's almost similar sort of connections that we try to do, but here we're talking about plants. And so since most organisms, we don't know their languages, so understanding that becomes a little complex. Next, please. So taxonomy is this major tool that most botanists and zoologists use, and we kind of give the idea of what modern taxonomy is to this person here, Linnaeus, who pretty much called it the scientific organization of living or once living, that is even extinct organisms also can be given a name. So for instance, T-Rex, the dinosaur, none of us saw it, but T-Rex has a name, all the fossils have a name, so even dead living organisms of the past also get a name. Next, please. So I'm going to just sort of slowly walk you through what exactly we do in my lab. So think of it, this is the landscape that you're seeing with different shapes is a forest in the northeast of India. Now all you can see from outside is that they are of different shapes. You can kind of see that the shapes are also have some similarities, but they're also diverse, but they're in the same landscape. So the two things that we're going to use in the lab is what we call as phenotype, that is the structure of the organism, and second is the genotype, which is the DNA of the organism. Next please. And so what we do, once we see that forest, we immediately, because that's human nature, we want to see oneness, but we also know that it's very diverse. So we don't want to lose the diversity that each one of us have when we are trying to connect how we related to each other. So the first thing we do in the forest is we start sorting them. So all that, sort of shapes that I had shown, we can then sort it into at least 4 types. The first is the triangle, second is the circle, third is the square with the rounded edge, fourth is the square with sharp edge. Now this exercise actually is an exercise that's given to 2-year-olds to see their neurological development, right? So this is pretty much, in some essence, I'm saying that the kind of science we do is something that kids do at 2 years, and if you can sort it, it tells you that your neurological sort of development is at the right pace. So this is what we do in the second step. Next, since it's plants, now I'm going to show you pictures of what those different shapes mean. The first one are all the pine-like plants, the second is the bamboo-like plants, the third is the coconut trees-like plants, the fourth are the cacti-like plants, the fifth are the regular trees, the ficus and everything else that you can think of. Now comes where we complicate it a little bit. Now I'm going to give you the names to each of these groups. So we're going to call all of these first groups as the gymnosperms, because of the flowering structures, whatever they may be having. Then we're going to divide the other 2 groups as monocots and dicots. So you know that grasses don't have wood, while the dicots have wood. So we're going to now look at internal structures and divide it again into monocots and dicots. And then we're interested in knowing, sorry, can you go back one slide? Then we're sort of interested in knowing how are they connected. So we just put that arrow. So we're going to now see how are gymnosperms connected to monocots, how are monocots connected to dicots, and that arrow is not a simple arrow because I'm now trying to understand the history of the past, what happened 8 million years ago, what happened 20 million years ago, and I'm in the present in 2023. So we have to come up with innovative ways to figure out how will I know who evolved from who, and how can I now relate to how biodiverse my region is. And so this is the final outcome that we're looking for, what we call as the phylogeny of all plants. And so, which is kind of in some sense the family tree that we're looking for. And so you can now see, using various techniques, we have connected the monocots to dicots, and we can say that they are sister species. Sister species means they were closely related to each other. They had a parent which was very recent. We can say gymnosperms are also related to monocots and dicots, and so on and so forth. Next, please. So this is a tree that all of you understand, right? That is, we know who's married to whom, who's the child, how are they related to each other. And the second feature of this tree, family tree, is that the last name is the same. So you start questioning, why is the name the same? Why are the names not the same? What is the origin of the name? We do the same thing, but in 7 million years ago. So if you couldn't sort the recent family, and the same I can show for, the Queen Victoria's family tree, which is, we all know it, we know how the lineages are supposed to go. Next, please. So what do we do as scientists? I just showed you that we sort plants in the forest, and then we try to understand this, what we call as origin of diversity, and how it is maintained. These two are very different questions, but very much connected. You have to first show me that this is how a species was formed, and then I have to show that this is how it can be maintained in our current situation. Next, please. So in the first part, what I've described so far is taxonomy, that is, you sort things. Next, please. And then we build the phylogeny. Sorry, the slide sort of changed. And then we look at all of these other features, that is where it originated, what is the age of the group, when exactly. And when I say when exactly, we are reasonably precise to millions of years. We can be precise to say that 7.5 million, 7.8 million years ago, this is what happened in the overall region called northeast of India. Next one. And so the tree that I showed to you, the cartoon that I've been talking about, in reality looks like what you're seeing on the right-hand side. That is the phylogenetic tree that we have built for 110 species of this one ginger genus, out of which 80 of them are found in the northeast of India. And that complicated graph that you see in the end is a result of a lot of molecular work, ecology work, field work, and looking at also chemical volatiles that these plants produce. Next. So this is sort of our overall idea, is to try to connect phylogenetic trees using this scientific method to see how is the Indian subcontinent connected across within the continent, between the larger region called Asia, and into Southeast Asia, which is also a very hyper-diverse region. Now, I think Professor Lokendra Singh talked about Patkai Hills and all of these geographic regions, and these are very important because not only Northeast is a corridor for people. If it was a corridor for people, then it was definitely a corridor for plants, because plants move quite actively between regions. And so the Northeast therefore becomes a very active region for exchange of plants across different millions of years. Next, please. So this is the group that I'm talking about, to just give you a perspective of where gingers are. Gingers are where this orange mark is here. This part here. This is the gingers. And they're also closely related to the bananas. So the musa, the bananas are right in the beginning. So in terms of the plant family of the gingibralis, everything is very closely related, and they're sort of, a lot of them are medicinal, a lot of them are edible. In fact, most of them are edible. If the fruit is not edible, we're at least using the leaves. If the leaves are not edible, we're using the rhizome. So overall, the entire plant is quite useful. So this is sort of the distribution of this one ginger species across northeast of India. Each of those dots tell you where the species are. And so what we are looking at in terms of the evolution of this plant, we're looking at these gingers across all of northeast India and not just one region. Manipur happens to be one of the region where we're also looking at how the species has evolved. And so this is the sort of overall final sort of result we got after about 8 years of study. And this, again, this graph is very complicated, but I'll try to walk you through it. So what you see in the bottom is that sorting that we have done of this 120 species. We have sorted all of these plants into what we call as clades, that is, these are tax species that are closely related. So there are 4 or 5 clades for all these gingers that are, especially most of them dominant in India. The last one, the last clade that you're seeing is the Indian clade. Unfortunately, you may not be able to read it, but that clade is the largest one, which means that the species diversity for this one genus is highest in India. And the question becomes, they're also present in Indonesia, they're also present in Malaysia, but what happened in the Indian region that it suddenly became very diverse? So that was our first question. What we found was that there were 3 features. One is this Himalayan uplift. The uplift changed the climate of this region such that the climate suddenly became more conducive or better for these plants, and therefore they started speciating. And you can think of it from any population. You build a city or a town which is very healthy, people populate that place, and then overall the population goes up. So the same thing happened with these gingers as well. Second, along with the Himalayan uplift, that happened was that monsoon got intensified. That means that the amount of water that we were receiving in the northeast region also increased, and gingers love water, so these are also correlated. Next, please. So this is how it looks. The Indian clade on the right-hand side. The locations where we have worked so far in Manipur are Wilong, Lairoching, Senapati, and Ukhrul. So if you go to any of these regions, you go drive by the roadside, every plant that you see on the roadside on either side are absolutely exceptional species, and species that have taken at least 8 million years to have evolved in this region. Now, while we are sort of looking at forest sort of destruction or whatever it may be, what happens is that we don't understand that how old these taxa are and what is going to happen to them. So next, please. And so this is what has how we know that the Himalayan uplift or the monsoon intensification is causing this issue. Is you can see, if you read the graph, you can see at some point the graph starts going up. It's flat and then it goes up. The flat part is about 5 million or 4 million years ago, when the species existed, but it was not thriving. Then something happened around 4 million years ago when, again, this connection of monsoon intensification and as well as the Himalayan uplift, which caused that increase that you're seeing in the last part, which is how the number of species have evolved. And so this gives us an indication that something in the northeast is very recent, and again, considering billions of years and millions of years, and therefore this is very important and pertinent for us in terms of conservation. Next, please. And this is also something we get from these kind of studies, where we are able to tell where did the species go and where are they going in the future. So you can do climate change models to see if the climate changes, if we do certain, anthropomorphic sort of, anthropogenic sort of effects to these, to our environments, what happens to these species. Now here, the way to read this graph is the D is where the species originated, and you can see the size of the arrow tells you how many species are present. And you can see that while the species originated in the Myanmar area, it actually came to the northeast and it thrived in the northeast. And therefore, the number of species or diversity in India is high, although it has traveled all across. So the same species traveled from Myanmar to Southeast Asia, to Indonesia, and also all the way to China. So the question, therefore, for us was, why are there so many species in India? And why do we call this region as the hotspot? So technically, we call Northeast region and the Himalayan area as the biodiversity hotspot, which means that if you put a 100 meter square sort of plot in any location, the species that you're going to find, whether it be plants, animals, insects, bacteria, whatever it may be, that 100 meter square is so rich in the number of species that is present, and also how endemic they are. Endemic means they can find it only in this region, that's what makes this region a biodiversity hotspot. Now, this is our backyard. Interestingly, everything that I've said required me to go to countries outside of India to study it, which is mostly in England, of course, because of our colonial history, and America as well, because most of our samples are there. And this is something that we need to think about. We have the expertise, the plants evolved in our region. I think it's about time we own the research ourselves and show interest in plants that are native so that we can study it, we can propagate it, and we decide the processes that may be happening in our landscape. Why? Because we know our landscapes better. If anyone outside of India comes and studies these plants, what do? They'll come once in a year for 5 days, collect the specimens, go out, and then they write books or even statements of evolutionary processes which may not be relevant to us. We live here, we know the humidity, we know the environment, we know the soil type. These are features that actually influence how the species has evolved. So therefore, native habitats need to be studied by native people. Native habitats need to be studied by people who are familiar with these habitats, because only then you can actually understand what is the overall diversity around us. Next, please. So this is just to give you an idea of what my students do in the field. We start off with just looking at the plant, the morphology as we call it. We then do a lot of ecological treatments. We do crosses, hybridization, and so on and so forth. We set up cameras to see who comes to the plant because pollination is a very important feature. This tells us also about the insect diversity in that region. We also do pollination experiments to see, when will it set a fruit. And then, of course, we use a lot of molecular data to see, how are the molecules changing in this larger group. Next, please. So this is just to give you an idea of some of the pollinators that we found. These are all the plants that I've shown. Most of them open in the night. So a lot of our field work happens at night. So in fact, our study starts at 6 in the evening and goes till 5 in the morning next day. And because the moths are the ones that pollinate, and you can see the moth, and you can see the pollen on the proboscis of the moth, which tells you that it has gone into the flower for the nectar, and when it comes out, the pollen sticks to its proboscis, which is the long mouth part it has, and that's how the pollination happens. Next, please. So this is sort of just to give you an idea of what we do in terms of the chemicals also. So let's say all of these gingers that I study are fragrant. When you take the flower, you can smell it. I'll give you a different species and you'll say, yes, this is different, but we are unable to sort of say what is different among the two species. But turns out the moths know this, the butterflies know this, and most of the insects know it. So we have been trying to use chemical ecology to try to understand how are the species different, and we find that what we sense as different is also what the sort of complicated GCMS or chemical ecology sort of methods also tell us, that species have different fragrances and different concentrations of chemicals. Now, what is the use of it? It is not only useful in the perfumery industry for now, but it's also something that is linked to the medicinal properties of these plants. And these properties I'm talking about is different in the flower, is different in the leaf, is different in the rhizome of the same species. So it's fairly very complex, which is why the science that needs to be invested in these kind of studies needs to be very serious and very intense. So I will sort of stop here. So you can kind of go to the last slide, last couple of slides, because I don't want to keep you away from your lunch. So if you have any questions, please ask me at the end. And with this, I'll sort of thank all the people who have worked with me in the Northeast. Like I said, Manipur is one of the states I work in. I've been working across all the states, including Sikkim, and we're sort of moving to Uttarakhand and Himachal next to do the similar studies. This is my team, and that's the one species that has been very, very difficult to work with in all of Northeast. And I thank all the funding agencies that have been very generous with me for the last 10 years. So thank you, and thank you for the invite, and I hope you will look at these plants next time. Just move. Just close.
Thank you so much, Dr. Vinita. And I've left out to read out your biodata. Thank you. So sorry for that. So just a short introduction. Dr. Vinita is a tropical evolutionary ecologist and has been working in the field of ecology and evolution for over 25 years. She is currently working as associate professor at the Indian Institute of Science, Education and Research, Bhopal. She is elected member of various international organizations and is active in promoting botanical studies both nationally and internationally. She has carried out studies in diverse tropical forests such as in Costa Rica, Panama, several Caribbean islands, Singapore, Thailand, Indonesia, and India. Her lab at IISER Bhopal is called the Tropical Ecology and Evolution Lab, and researchers in her group address questions that will help us understand how plants in the larger Indo-Chinese biographic region have evolved and how plant species have traveled between various historically closely linked geographic regions. So ladies and gentlemen, now the floor is open for the question and answer session. Yes, we have.
First of all, I would like to thank all the speakers. We had quite a, power-packed knowledge session. My only questions, because as a Northeast, we are thinking of the development, future development.
Sir, a little closer. Yeah.
Sustainable development. So my question to all the speaker is that, of course, talking towards the ecology, is there a green value chain here? What the government is doing regarding the carbon footprint around whole India? What kind of rules and regulations been done? And what we are thinking, because we must have a development. There is no substitute. We have to have a sustainable development. And to me, to have a sustainable energy is more important. Because everything is related. Everything, whatever we see is energy. So sustainable energy, of course, there are many areas like solar and wind, and we saw in the introduction. Now, that is what the government is doing, especially with the carbon prints and carbon value chain and everything. That's my one question. Second thing, on behalf of, with due permission from Ashni Kumar ji, I would like to tell everyone that our company has recently developed the hydrogen technology and hydrogen fuel cell, and on 25th and 26th of this month, we are launching that in Delhi in Hyatt Centric. This is our patented product. It will be very nice for me, especially with Maiti, to you, all of you, to come here to encourage us. It took us more than 10 years to develop that technology. So, sorry for. So, I will request all the. I will request all of you, as a CEO of the company, I will welcome all of you to see the technology, because it's as we say, we Indian think about Sasta Sundar Majboot. In Hindi, what we say, Sasta Sundar Majboot. So we have developed a Sasta Sundar Majboot energy for all of us, for the whole world. So please come and give us an encouragement in the next, on 25th and 26th of April. Thank you so much. I would like to know about the first question which I asked from the madam, because you are in a very good position too, or sir also, that you are in a good position to ask the government what they are doing with the carbon print problems. Because we as a developing country soon is going to have a problem with what other developed countries already have. We have to learn from them what their mistake they did. We don't do the same mistake again. Thank you so much.
Thank you, and congratulations for the launch. Actually, the question is not so simple, but I have a sort of simple perspective on this because I've worked in the Northeast, so I'll give you an answer which is very South, what we call global South specific and Northeast specific, which is that we know that the Northeast regions and also many southern countries require development. So while we want to conserve plants or conserve forests, development is also not is not something that you can put in the back foot, because there are people involved. There are people who live in these remote locations with very different facilities which are not available. So therefore, when we talk of ecology and conservation, we are right now talking about getting that baseline data which Professor Sinha talked about. So the reason we want these studies is because we want to set that baseline. Now we have a problem with development and urbanization is when there is no baseline data, when there's no interest in gathering that baseline data, and then development happens. Interestingly, in India, this is not the case, partly because there are several bodies who are doing these biodiversity studies locally. But again, efforts like what we are doing today is to bring people together and then have a policy statement that can go all the way to the PMO's office is very important, because only then the policy decisions will come from a place of knowledge, will come from a place of information from people who have worked in the region and have expertise. So I don't think we are doing much wrong. I also don't think there's much to learn from the West other than the fact that, biodiversity loss is a serious thing, which again, most of our old scriptures had it. It's an ancient wisdom as well that biodiversity loss is not something that is sustainable, is not something that is preferred. So in some sense, it's more about us looking at ourselves and saying, what do we want? Rather than wanting to learn from the West at this point, I think. But their mistakes are not ours, you know, we are very different. True, maybe, I will try. Well, I got educated in the US, so I know the West well, but...
Hello, I'm from IBST, I'm Dr. Bisheshwari. Thanks for coming up to the Hidikim species and the genus particularly. So what my questions goes to is to Dr. Binita. Like, how do you correlate with the diversity of the Hidikim genus regarding all the species? Because in case of Hidikim, we find so many species which are directly related with the evolutionary trends. Some are lithophytic, some are epiphytic, and some are in the marshy areas. So how do you correlate with your phylogenetic analysis? And how you find that this type of genus or the species in these groups are highly confined in these areas of northeastern region? Thank you.
So I think most people, if you don't know, Vishweshwari is one of the ginger experts that you locally have, so you should welcome her as well. She's been working on gingers for a very long time now. So thank you for the question, but it's very botany specific, so I mean, we can talk later for sure, but the reason we know this is because we have done extensive genetic studies. Currently what we have done is we've not only looked at basic sort of, the chloroplast and the nuclear DNA, we're actually doing genomic analysis on a population level, which I don't think this is the right audience to go through those graphs, but we're looking at population level to the point that we're saying whether Ukrul gingers, the same species, what is its DNA diversity from anyone from the Maran district. So we're going literally one location to the other. We are looking at who's its neighbor and what is the genetic diversity of its neighbor. So we're trying to almost do forensics of like who's the father of this plant, who's the mother of this plant, and so on and so forth. So we have enough genetic data now to say what we're saying. And also, like I said, we've looked at fossils for the monocots to date, which is why I'm reasonably confident of saying 7.5 million years or 8 million years is where things started changing. So right now we have sufficient evidence to say what we're saying. What is interesting is also that other projects in my lab where we're looking at completely different species, even they show the same pattern. So it's almost like, there are now at least 6 different major groups of plants which are showing the exact same pattern. They came from a Myanmar region, came to India, and then they just flourished. And when I say flourished, it's just the speciation went absolutely bonkers. Amazing diversity in a very short period of time. So that is why we think that the Northeast region is a very, very young and happening place for species diversity and biodiversity. Yeah.
Thank you so much. And the last question, ma'am.
Namaskar, ma'am. Sir, namaskar. My question is to sir. The rivers are considered as mothers in our culture. And now we are seeing that we are releasing chemical wastes and this on that. So it indicates that there is a change in our perspective. And our scientific experiments that are showing that symptoms only. So my humble question is, are there any efforts also to going to the root of this issue and then to find out the causal level in the integrated way? Thank you, sir.
Yeah, very interesting question. See, you are right. We have always considered the rivers as our mothers, and all the many rivers are named as females, Ganga, Jamuna, Saraswati, and all of that. So there has been a tradition and a culture to treat the rivers as a mother. That's fine. The problem is that, as I said before in my talk also, that, your greed has taken over your needs. That's the basic problem here. So if your greed takes over the needs, then you don't care about anything else. You don't care about the damages you are doing to an ecosystem. As I gave you an example of when we were talking about the environmental flows, for example, people were questioning us that why are you preferring farmers over dolphins? That is not the comparison which has to be made. I think the center of the discussion has to be the river itself, not the farmer, not the dolphin. And the dying of the dolphin is an indicator of the dying of the river. That's why we prefer to use dolphin as an indicator and not the farmer. So similarly, when you talk about this disposal of the chemical waste, again the same consideration has to be given. Yes, the waste are being produced as a part of the industry. They have to be disposed. But the rivers are not there are obviously easy solutions. You make a drain and you drain it to the river. That's the easiest thing, because rivers are generally occupying the lowest position on the topography. So everything you drain, it will eventually reach the river anyway. So that's the easiest solution. But that's not the solution, and I think the government has done a lot of these issues. In fact, the part of the Ganga River Basin Management Plan which we gave to the government, one of the target was that we should have a zero tolerance for the waste disposal in the river. So we actually have we gave them the technology by which very cheap processing of the polluted water can be developed or are available. So technologies are available, and now the efforts are going on to either move these industries which have which, for example, the place I live, Kanpur, is one of the very important town in terms of tannery industry, and the entire tannery industry has traditionally been located along the river, and they have been discharging waste all the time. All of these tanneries have been now removed. They have been given a separate place. They have been asked to set up the waste disposal and waste treatment facilities. So there is a huge effort which is going on from the government side, and we are conscious now of the fact that this is a big problem to be handled. And mind it, sewage treatment or industrial pollution treatment is not a rocket science. It's technological solutions, and very cheap solutions are already available to the system, and they are implementable. So they are all being done now. The second part of the question is where you talked about the perception. I think apart from the effort these governments are making, it is also important that the people have to change their perspective, and that's where the community working becomes important. So I have worked with many organizations like WWF, for example, where we have created a system of Ganga Mitras, Ram Ganga Mitras, for example, where we have created a community of people who are living along the river, and we try and educate them as to why this should not be done. Even if you are discharging something which is deep into the earth, it will eventually find its way, into the river because of the leaching process. India is a tropical country. We have a lot of rain. Everything, which is buried below, they will eventually find its way into the river. So some of these things have to be taught to the people in a very simple way. So we have been making those efforts as well, involving the community and talking to them, and then educating them as well. So, and then they become the representatives, and then they eventually teach the rest of the villages, the rest of the blocks.
Things is not going on these days. The large-scale soil erosion along with the fertilizer chemical eutrophication impact is large-scale. It is a universal problem of all the urban cities and urban river eutrophication and water hyacinths. Any policy deliberation regarding that, the mitigation of eutrophication impact? Sir, please elaborate.
This has been a point of discussion for a long time, right? But again, you must realize that, again, the center of the discussion has to be the river itself. Why the chemical fertilizers and pesticides came into picture? Because our focus went from river to food production, right? And therefore we focus much more on the food production, and therefore we forgot about the river part or the water bodies part, for example. So that emphasis has to change. When we talked about the green revolution in the 60s, what did we do? India became, of course, India was literally begging for wheat and rice to the Western world, right? But then we brought the green revolution part of it. Absolutely kudos to that effort. But we forgot about the groundwater management. And now look at what we have done to states like Punjab and Haryana. The water tables have gone down to 30, 40, 50 meters in the last decade, or so. We are now the world's largest hotspot of groundwater depletion in the whole world. So so therefore, somewhere down the line, we forgot about the associated problems which are going to happen. The Green Revolution document, if you look at it, that never talked about ignoring the groundwater system, but we did. So therefore, it's the holistic implementation of the strategy with a focus on the natural systems has to be promoted. That is when we will be able to restore the system, be it a river, be it a lake, be it a wetland, or be it a groundwater system. So that focus has to change. And I think it's happening. There is now a very strong discouragement of using the chemical fertilizers and pesticides. There is a focus on organic agriculture and so on. Still cost is a factor, but I think things will come. There is a lot of research going on as well, in promoting this kind of organic, agriculture and so on. Water utilization is a big problem, much bigger problem than the fertilizer itself. So all of these things are coming up, and I think we'll see a better future, as Sushma ji said, not just in terms of education, but also in terms of the science and education and utilization or optimal utilization of our resources in coming times, basically. Yeah. Yeah, sure.
So in some sense, I think like what we have to also think is that we need to change the way we are looking at ecosystems for two reasons. Asian region in itself, population-wise, is very dense. So looking at the same what someone else said, management from the West, will not apply here. We are very different people as a region because of our backgrounds, because of our history of where we come from and how we live. Our family structures are different, our interactions with our biodiversity is different. So in some sense, this management has to be now thought of what we want, for what we want in our space in the next 50, 100 years. And so that will not be what the West has done. We can take technologies from them, but we'll have to redo it for what we need for us. And that is something which is probably part of this Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. That is, we need to think of who we are first, which is that baseline data we need, and then look at solutions. And I think certain things that, let's say if the same talk is given in a Western conference, many solutions will come. Most of it will not fit us. And so that's where the difference comes. So therefore it's I think it's a good time for us to now know, because our science is very good. You know, we have very good institutions, whether we rank or not, and I agree with Sushma ji about that, we're not a rank-based country. We are into learning and we're into dispersing, education. If you see per capita how many students are able to go till masters in India and in China, it's very high, because our education is reasonably free and we want to keep it that way, right? So that is different from when you see how many kids in the US end up doing a master's. Very, very few. It's the privileged few who get into undergrad. Undergrad students have loans. Our undergrad students have hostels for free. Food is, subsidized. So I think if you think about it, landscape ecology also has to be thought for us. And the solutions has to be internal from our past, from our people. And I think we just need to do it that way. So I don't think there's a clear solution for these landscape ecology problems here.
Thank you so much. That was quite a productive session. Thank you so much, Professor Rajiv Sinha and Dr. Vinita. Thank you so much. And I think almost everyone is out for the lunch. Please join us for the lunch, and post-lunch session will start at 1:45 p.m. Would like to request everyone to please be back at 1:45 p.m. for the afternoon. Okay, 2 o'clock. At 2 p.m. we'll begin the fourth session, the post-lunch session. Thank you so much, everyone.